Chapter 329. In the Qingyun Dao trial this time, apart from the breakthrough and improvement of the Leaf Fire Dao, the other gain is the experience points reward for passing each level of the trial. The first level of the Qingyun Dao trial rewards 2 million experience points. From now on, the reward for each level will be increased by 100,000. In the end, I passed the first level of the 8th Qingyun Dao trial and was rewarded 3 million experience points. All the trials added up to a total of 962 million experience points. Jiang Ci calculated in his heart. Now, his experience points had exceeded 1 billion again. It was definitely more than enough to deduce the Gale Dao. However, it was definitely not enough to deduce the next realm of the sword domain. He still needed more experience points. The new source of experience points is almost here. Jiang Ci smiled gently. Although the specific ranking of the finals had not been decided yet, he had now confirmed that he had entered the top 3,600 of the finals. He had a chance to comprehend the ancient Dao source world. That was the source of all Dao, and it was said that one could see the Dao of heaven and earth with the naked eye. In his eyes, it was all experience points. The arena battles were not like the battles outside where space was limited. Both parties had limited space and could only fight. There was no other choice. Hence, the 2 rounds of the arena battles of the 12,960 people were carried out very quickly. In the end, there were only 3,240 victors left. In addition, there were the top 360 geniuses of the Qingyun Dao trial. At this point, the top 3,600 of the finals of the 9 regions genius battle had all been determined. Immortal Ilyang's massive figure was high in the starry sky. He looked down at the crowd and said leisurely, "The 3,240 victors, congratulations, you have also entered the Purple Heaven sect. As for the 9,720 people who failed, it's a pity that you can only go this far. However, I hope that you don't give up. The 9 regions genius battle is not the only way to enter the Purple Heaven sect. If you work hard and cultivate, you can also become a disciple of the Purple Heaven sect through other methods. Of course, even if you don't enter the Purple Heaven sect, it doesn't mean that you can't become a powerhouse in the future. There is no end to cultivation, and there are thousands of Dao techniques. There will always be a path that suits you." Immortal Ilyang's voice echoed in the sky above the continent. The eyes of the 9,720 geniuses who had failed who were initially disappointed lit up again after hearing those words. Being able to pass this stage doesn't mean that we are inferior to those people before us. We're still young. Our path has just begun. The nascent soul stage is just a stage of cultivation. There's still the essence divinity stage, Dao integration stage, and even the immortal stage. We still have a chance to catch up to them. I want to go back and cultivate in seclusion for 1,000 years. I won't come out until I reach the Dao." Seeing that everyone had regained their confidence, Immortal Ilyang nodded with a smile. With a wave of his sleeve, he sent them out of the skyspan mountain and river diagram. His attitude towards these 9,720 people was completely different from his attitude towards the 10 million people. This was because the people who were eliminated in this round were not lacking in talent. They just lacked a little bit of strength and luck. There were only 3,600 geniuses left on the green jade stone platform, and many of them had smiles on their faces. Especially the 3,240 people who had just won, they were smiling even more. After all, victory always made people happy. Immortal Ilyang looked at everyone and said with a smile, "Next up is you all. I'm sure there are people who have long heard of the existence of my Purple Cloud sect's 9th heaven." Many of the 3,600 geniuses' eyes lit up with anticipation. The Dao Alliance had 3 core groups and 6 sections. Amongst them, the Violet Heaven sect's reputation was on par with that of the Taoist path, the Buddhist path, and the Sword School. The Purple Heaven sect's 9 levels of heaven was spread among many powerful clans and forces in the 9 regions. Those geniuses who came from extraordinary backgrounds were very clear that even the weakest first-level Sky Realm cultivator would not be able to achieve such a feat as long as they could enter. Their chances of reaching the Tao integration stage in the future would be greatly increased. However, there were still many people who did not understand the existence of the ninth heaven of the Purple Heaven sect. Therefore, Immortal Yi Liang smiled and explained. The Purple Heaven sect has 9 heavens. The first 4 heavens are where millions of disciples cultivate. From the first to the 4th layer, the best is of course the 4th layer. As everyone knows, no matter how many resources there are, they are still limited. It is impossible for everyone to enter the best level 4 heavens. So, next, you will have to determine the final ranking of the finals through the arena battles. Which heaven you can enter will be allocated according to your ranking. At this point, Immortal Yi Liang was stunned. Even the geniuses below could see his astonished expression. While everyone was puzzled, he smiled and said, "I have good news. Iron Mountain True Monarch told me just now. According to the rules of the previous tournaments, there is only one level 4 heaven spot. However, this year's 9 Regions Genius Tournament can have 2 extra spots." These words excited many of the geniuses who had the strength to fight for the top 10. They were so excited that their faces flushed red. 3 level 4 heaven spots. Jiang Xi's breathing quickened involuntarily. A chance. Even if Shi Wei took 1 spot, there were still 2 spots to fight for. The Tao integration experts were even more astonished. The rules that had been in place for so many years had actually changed this year. It should be the higher-ups of the Purple Heaven sect. They saw that the strength of this tournament's geniuses far exceeded the previous ones, so they added 2 extra spots for level 4 heavens. The 9 Regions Genius Tournament this time is indeed extraordinary. There are already 3 geniuses who cultivate special Tao of heaven and earth. There are also a few youngsters like Yen Jiufeng and Mo Hong. If they were in the previous tournaments, they would also have the strength to fight for first place. In the starry sky, Immortal Yi Liang looked at the excited faces of the geniuses and nodded in satisfaction. It would be a problem if they were not excited. The Purple Heaven sect had 9 heavens, and level 4 heavens represented the highest status for the disciples. He continued. Next, I'll talk about the distribution of the level 1 to level 4 heavens, as well as the specific rewards for the finals. Before the 9 Regions Genius Tournament began, we announced some rewards. As long as you enter the top 3,600 of the finals, you will become a disciple of the Purple Heaven sect. You will also receive a minimum of 100 million low-grade spirit crystals and a chance to comprehend the ancient Tao origin world. Everyone will have a chance to comprehend the ancient Tao origin world. As for which level 4 you will enter and how many spirit crystals you will receive, that will be determined by your ranking. 3613-600 will enter the level 1 heavens and receive 100 supreme grade spirit crystals. 11 to 360 will enter the level 2 heavens and receive 1000 supreme grade spirit crystals. 4th to 10th will enter the level 3 heavens and receive 10,000 supreme grade spirit crystals. The top 3 will enter the level 4 heavens and receive 100,000 supreme grade spirit crystals. Let me emphasize that the rankings here are not for the trial, but for the upcoming arena battles. The geniuses became excited again as soon as Immortal Yi Liang finished speaking. The Purple Heaven sect was too generous. 100 supreme grade spirit crystals were equivalent to 100 million low-grade spirit crystals. The top 3 would receive 100,000 supreme grade spirit crystals, which was equivalent to 100 billion low-grade spirit crystals. It was comparable to a top-tier Immortal Tao sect. Moreover, these rewards were distributed according to the rankings of the arena battles. Those who had been ranked low in the trial would now have a chance to charge to the top. Chapter 330. They're so rich. Jiang Xi's eyes widened. The Mountain Sea Star trade had been developing for more than 20 years, and the soaring Rainbow Star trade had increased it a little. Until now, it had only reached 1 billion. However, it would be very difficult for him to take out 1 billion low-grade spirit crystals at once. That was the difference between liquid assets and fixed assets. Now, as long as he entered the top 10, he would be able to obtain 10 billion low-grade spirit crystals. Of course, Jiang Xi also knew that spirit crystals were the least valuable among the three rewards. As long as he entered the Purple Heaven sect, even if it was the lowest first heaven, he would be able to obtain more resources. The resources he would obtain in the future could not be measured by money at all. It would be far more valuable than the spirit crystal reward. Not to mention, there was also a chance to enter the ancient Tao origin world. That was something that could not be obtained even with money. Many of the geniuses were filled with battle intent. Since the rewards would be distributed through battle, it would be a competition of strength. It would be absolutely fair. At that moment, Immortal Ilyang's tone changed, and he chuckled. There is no absolute fairness in the laws of the universe. Therefore, not everyone will have the chance to participate in the third round of the arena battles. We will choose 360 people from the winners of the previous 2 rounds of the arena battles. They will fight one-on-one with the top 360 people in the previous trial. Immortal Ilyang's voice was ethereal as it echoed in the starry sky. The 3,240 geniuses who had just won 2 rounds of the arena battles were filled with battle intent. Because of the huge rewards, their battle intent surged. Hearing this, they immediately became nervous. Some could participate and some could not. The list is as follows: Li Xianxian, Luan Ming, Lan Qiongjiu. When Immortal Ilyang finished reading out the 360 names. Whoosh! The geniuses whose names were not read out immediately had a change of expression. They were indignant. Some of the more hot-tempered ones could not suppress the anger in their hearts and even asked loudly, "Exalted Immortal, why are you so sure that we are inferior to those 360 people?" Some of the bolder ones echoed, "Yes, we are not bad in the arena battles either. I'm indignant. Let us participate in the third round of the arena battles. Let our strength speak for us." They had gone through the Qingyun Dao trial and 2 rounds of the arena battles. They had already come this far, and none of them were willing to give up. Humph! Immortal Chuha, who rarely spoke, suddenly snorted coldly. A power that far surpassed the Tao of heaven and earth descended. Bang bang bang, under the powerful pressure of the immortal Tao, everyone knelt on the ground. This included the Tao integration stage experts. It's fine if you don't like it. Just leave my Purple Heaven sect. Immortal Chuhi's voice was low, but it sounded like thunder. Who else is not convinced? Speak now. He was dressed in black armor, and his face was upright and serious. His words were emotionless. It was quiet. If you're not convinced, you can just leave. It was a simple sentence, but it was overbearing. The geniuses who had been shouting about their dissatisfaction had all quieted down. Their faces were filled with terror and disbelief. Some people did not understand why the Zixiao sect would treat them so overbearingly. They were all geniuses. Under the indiscriminate pressure, Jiang Xi also knelt on the ground. He felt very helpless. This was truly an unexpected calamity. Were there something wrong with these people's brains? Even after cultivating for several hundred years, he still did not understand this principle. What kind of existence was Purple Heaven sect? Of the 3 schools and 6 sects of the Tao Alliance, the Taoist path, the Buddhist Sangha, and the Sword School didn't care about anything. The true ruler of the 9 realms was the Violet Heaven sect. Didn't you see that the leader of the Heavenly Court was a member of Purple Heaven sect? Jiang Xi knew this very well from the very beginning. The 9 Realms Genius Tournament was, to put it bluntly, used by the immortal Tao sects, who stood at the peak of the universe, to select disciples. They were just disciples. Of course, they had to add the word genius, but genius was nothing. The 9 realms of the Tao Alliance occupied the most fertile territories in the universe. They nurtured countless life forms, and there was no shortage of geniuses. Ordinary geniuses like them would come in batches. As long as they had enough time, they could have as many as they wanted. The only ones who were truly valued by Purple Heaven's sect were geniuses like Zhi Wei, who only appeared once in a million years. After a round of intimidation, Immortal Chu he retracted his aura and calmed down once more. Now that the good cop was over, it was time to play the bad cop. Immortal Yi Liang's friendly laughter once more echoed through the stars. I've already told you that there is no such thing as absolute fairness in the laws of the universe. If you want to obtain fairness, you must first have strength. You are all geniuses of the human race. In the future, immortal Dao experts might be born among you. Thus, I hope that you can truly understand that strength is the most important thing. Don't be killed by your own naivety. Of course, there is no need to doubt the 360 people we've just selected. They are definitely fair. That's all I have to say. Now, let the third round of arena battles begin. The 360 people we've just selected will fight against the top 360 people in the trial. The Purple Heavens sect will still decide the two sides. A moment later, the enormous green jade platform began to transform. 360 arenas appeared once more, each one tens of thousands of square kilometers in size. Jiang Xi's expression turned solemn, because no one knew who their opponents would be. If they encountered a freak like Xi Wei, it would be over. Whoosh! Immortal Yi Liang waved his sleeve, and the 720 people disappeared, appearing in pairs on the 360 arenas. The 360 battles were about to begin. Since the beginning of the first round of arena battles, the various vital planets of the Dao Alliance. Through the Skyspan River diagram in the sky, one would be able to see the battles. The third round of arena battles could be said to be a showdown between the peak geniuses of the human race. Trillions of people were paying attention to this battle. 720 people. The winner would advance, and the loser would retreat. Who would win? Jiang Xi will definitely win. He will definitely enter the top 10. Mu Ning is also the glory of the Blue Star region. He also needs our support. Go Mu Ning! The people of the Blue Star region, and even the entire Blue Star region, were roaring and cheering for the two of them. The shepherd boy, who had a pure nature, was not that bad in terms of popularity. Brother, go for it. Jiang Daodu looked up at the enormous Skyspan River diagram. On her shoulder, the thumb-sized remnant Dao integration stage ghost, Yin Tiansheng, was also watching the arena battles. The Dao Alliance's 9 Zones Geniuses tournament is famous throughout the universe. The human race occupies the best territory in the universe and has also seized the most providence. These geniuses were born with the providence of heaven and earth. How enviable! Yin Tianxing sighed. Aren't the ghosts also blessed by the heavens? Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to become one of the peak races in the universe, Jiang Daoda continued. With the restriction on Yin Tianxing, she had a rough understanding of the situation of the ghosts. Master, you must be joking. If it weren't for the existence of the demons, the human race would have already destroyed the ghosts. Yin Tianxing smiled bitterly. Jiang Daodu shook her head. Even without the demons, the ghosts wouldn't have been destroyed because the human race needs an enemy. The universe is fair. If the human race doesn't have an enemy, the universe will definitely create a new one for the human race. Yin Tianxing was stunned for a moment and fell into deep thought. Jiang Daodu smiled and continued to look at the Skyspan River diagram in the sky. The words just now were what Jiang Xi had said to her when he sealed the monsters on Earth. She had only made some slight changes. At that time, she had asked Jiang Xi why he didn't destroy all the monsters on Earth. Jiang Xi's answer was that he wanted to find an enemy for the humans on Earth. A race without an enemy would be destroyed sooner or later. Because nature was fair. If you didn't have an enemy, nature would create a new one for you at that time. If you weren't familiar with the new enemy, you might face a disaster. Be prepared for danger in times of peace. This was one of the survival rules that Jiang Xi had taught Jiang Daodu. If you wanted to become stronger and live forever, you had to have a sense of danger. Chapter 331. The 360 arena battles began at the same time. On the combat arena that was tens of thousands of square kilometers, Jiang Xi and another figure appeared at the same time. Who's my opponent? Jiang Xi looked at the other side. Xing Feng. It was a handsome young man, but at this moment, he had a sullen expression on his face. It's actually Jiang Xi. If it was before the Qingyun Dao trial, Xing Feng wouldn't take Jiang Xi seriously at all. However, things were completely different now. During the arena battles, very few people were willing to face Jiang Xi. It was because everyone knew too little about Jiang Xi's strength. The most they knew was the information about Jiang Xi's strength in the first stage of the 9 Regions Genius battle. Besides, during the previous Qingyun Dao trial, only the 2 immortals and those Dao integration powerhouses could check the situation in the illusory space. Hence, they had no idea how strong Jiang Xi was, what realm his Dermic Dao was at, and what powerful moves he had. If they didn't know their opponent well, they would be at a disadvantage. As long as there's still a chance, we can't give up. The ranking of the trial doesn't completely represent one's strength. I'm good at speed, so I can kill him with my speed. Xing Feng quickly made a judgment with a sullen expression. Kill! With a flash of lightning, he disappeared on the spot. Xing Feng, ranked 372nd in the trial, cultivates the rare Dermic Dao, the Dao of Lightning, and is good at speed. Jiang Xi was also confident. Whoosh! The Gale Domain and the Dao of Fire descended at the same time. The wind and fire merged and circled around him. His speed immediately reached the highest. It was a battle of speed. The 2 of them disappeared from the ring. Those who were weak couldn't see it at all. In the outside world, the people who were watching the battle through the Tongtian mountain and river painting could only see an empty ring. Only powerhouses above the Essence Soul realm could see it clearly. In the ring, Xing Feng's figure flickered like lightning, and his ability to accelerate instantly was even faster than Jiang Xi's. Good opportunity. With his instant acceleration, he appeared beside Jiang Xi. He slashed out with his saber. Ka-cha! Pht! 2 sounds sounded at the same time. 2 figures reappeared on the arena. Jiang Xi's left arm was broken, but there was a sword in Xing Feng's heart. In this battle, Jiang Xi won. If he entered the top 360 of the finals, he would get at least 1,000 top-grade spiritual crystals and become a disciple of the second sky of the Purple Heaven sect. When the 2 of them returned to the Green Jade platform, Xing Feng asked Jiang Xi unwillingly, why? His speed was clearly faster. Although your speed is fast, your attacks are not as fast as mine. Jiang Xi said softly. Xing Feng was stunned. Jiang Xi shook his head. Although he had won, he did not relax at all. After all, he had also lost an arm. To be able to reach this step, none of them are weak. The Dao of Lightning is also a rare Dao technique. If his Dao technique was even more profound, my attack speed wouldn't be able to keep up with him. Because it was a battle of speed, it started quickly and ended quickly as well. In the other arenas, there were still many battles going on. Jiang Xi did not say anything more and turned his eyes to the other arenas. Now was a good opportunity to observe his opponents. Mooning's song can not only hurt the body but also destroy the soul. This is not the Dao of life, but the Dao of death. Ji Wei. Hiss, this freak didn't even move. He just shattered the void and turned his opponent into nothingness. What's that? Poison. What a terrifying move. The opponent was silently struck by it. Jiang Xi watched many arena battles at the same time and learned more about the strength of the other geniuses. For example, this was the first time he had watched Ji Wei's battle at such a close distance. It was much more intuitive than watching the videos before. Although what everyone was showing now might not be their full strength, he could already see a lot. None of these geniuses who have the strength to compete for the top 10 are easy to deal with. Jiang Xi frowned slightly. Only by entering the top 10 could they have a chance to compete for the top 3. Swish, 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 figures appeared on the Green Jade platform from time to time. 360 arena battles ended one after another. Jiang Xi and Mu Ning from the Pale Blue Star region had successfully passed. In other words, all the top 360 geniuses had won, except for a few who had failed. Those who had failed could only accept it helplessly, although they were unwilling. After the third round of arena battles ended, Immortal Ilyang's leisurely voice sounded again. Next is the fourth round of arena battles. This time, our Purple Heaven sect will choose 20 people from those who won just now to compete for the top 10. Many of the 360 geniuses who had just won changed their expressions. This move again. This is too domineering. In this way, the 340 geniuses who were not chosen would have no chance of entering the top 10. They would be directly assigned to the second heaven of the Purple Heaven sect. But this time, no one dared to say anything. Immortal Chuha's earlier display of intimidation had made everyone realize one thing. In the eyes of the Purple Heaven sect, they were not as important as they thought. Immortal Ilyang saw that everyone was silent and nodded in satisfaction. He smiled and said, "We have already decided on these 20 people based on the situation of their previous attacks." Based on the situation of their previous attacks? Many people's expressions changed. Some of them had hidden their moves and did not use them. Thus, many people became nervous again. Jiang Xi frowned. He shouldn't have any problems. However, he did not have absolute confidence in the Purple Heaven sect's decision. After all, the Purple Heaven sect used standards to judge. While everyone was nervous, Immortal Ilyang did not keep them in suspense and directly announced, "The list of 20 people is as follows: Ji Wei, Chang Xian, Yan Jiufeng, Luan Ming, Mu Ning, Qin Yu, Kuang Lang, Xiao Hu, Jiang Xi, Qiao Guancheng. The duels will be in the order I just announced. The first will be against the second, the third will be against the fourth." Many people who had their names called secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Those whose names were not called were naturally incomparably dejected, their faces filled with bitterness, but soon, everyone turned their attention back to the duels of the 20 people. After the duels were arranged according to the order, everyone became lively. Chang Xian is too tragic. He actually fought against Ji Wei. There is no difference whether he chose or not. Luan Ming against Yan Jiufeng is not good either. Yan Jiufeng's fire fist is too strong. Everyone discussed animatedly. Those who wanted to watch a good show did not mind if it was more exciting. The handsome young man called Chang Xian had a bitter smile on his face. The joy that had just risen was instantly suppressed. 20 people, 10 duels in the arena. Everyone paid close attention to every duel. This was because whoever won this round of duels would enter the top 10 and become a third heaven disciple of the Purple Heaven sect. The 3,600 Dao integration experts standing in the air were also paying attention to the duel arrangements. Jiang Xi against Qiao Guancheng. Many Dao integration experts laughed. This time, there will be a good show. That Jiang Xi is actually going against the disciple of the Five Poisons Devil. Many Dao integration experts laughed and looked at Wei Sheng and the Five Poisons Devil. The Purple Heaven sect's arrangement was really a coincidence. Chapter 332. Five Poisons, your disciple is in danger. He actually went up against Jiang Xi, a Dao integration stage expert joked. So what? In terms of fighting on the arena, my Five Poisons Dao is not inferior to anyone. Ranking in the trial did not represent one's true strength. My disciple obtained my 5 poison essence. This Jiang Xi is unlucky to have a showdown with my disciple. The 5 poisons old ghost coldly snorted. You sure talk big. Wei Xing sneered. Just watch. The 5 poisons old ghost said with a gloomy face, no longer speaking. Wei Xing's heart sank as he frowned slightly, feeling a little worried. He and the 5 poisons old ghost had been enemies for many years, so he was naturally aware of the power of the 5 poisons Dao. Although the Dao of 5 poisons had 5 in its name, it included more than 5 poisons. The more poisons one fused into this Tao, the stronger one's Tao would be. Similarly, the Tao of 5 poisons was not suitable for the Qingyun Tao trial. Just as the 5 poisons ghost had said, ranking in the trial did not represent one's true strength. His disciple, Qiao Guanqing, ranked 124th in the final trial. But in a true battle on the arena, the advantages of the Tao of 5 poisons were revealed. In the third round of arena battles just now, Qiao Guanqing easily disposed of his opponent. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been chosen by the Purple Heavens sect as one of the final 20 people. I just don't know how many types of poisons this little 5 poisons has fused. If there are more than 3,000 types, it will be troublesome. Wei Xing's gaze landed on riverward. The fourth round of the arena battles was about to begin. On the green jade stone platform, the 20 selected people were observing each other's opponents. Jiang Xi's gaze locked onto a young man with a strange face. This person's clothes were brightly colored, with all kinds of strange poisonous beasts embroidered on them. Just looking at them would make one's heart turn cold. He's Qiao Guanqing, a genius from the True Xian region's Tuluo Star region. He cultivates the rare Dao technique, the Dao of 5 poisons. His master is the Dao integration stage expert, the 5 poisons devil. Jiang Xi's expression was calm, but his heart was not at ease. Before the start of the finals, Earth had sent him the information of Qiao Guanqing's strength. Moreover, he was ranked at the front. He had also seen Qiao Guanqing make a move in the previous round of battle. This person's poison was soundless, and could target both the body and the soul. It was even weirder than Mu Ning's Tao of life. When fighting against such a genius, the slightest carelessness would lead to defeat. Jiang Xi, Qiao Guanqing was also observing Jiang Xi, and a strong desire to fight rose in his heart. His eyes were like those of a snake, flashing with a shrewd light. His long tongue slid out and licked his face. True geniuses were all prideful and believed that they were not inferior to others. Qiao Guanqing wouldn't admit defeat in advance just because Jiang Xi came in second place in the Qingyun Dao trial. Unless Jiang Xi was like Ji Wei, whose strength far surpassed theirs. On the green jade platform, there were only 10 fighting arenas left. Each area was still tens of thousands of square kilometers and was covered by a formation boundary. Immortal Yi Liang waved his sleeve and the 20 people disappeared. The battle for the top 10 began at the same time. Jiang Xi and Qiao Guanqing appeared on one of the arenas. Their auras instantly rose to the peak. Jiang Xi, today I'm going to let you know that the ranking in the trial does not represent one's true strength. Even if I'm in 124th place, I can still kill you, the one in second place. Qiao Guanqing sneered and licked his face with his snake-like tongue. Cut the crap, let's fight. Jiang Xi refused to admit defeat. There was a buzz. The sword shadow trembled slightly, and the space in the combat arena began to vibrate. His body swayed and he dashed out. He left behind several phantoms and it was unknown which one was the real body. On the opposite side, Qiao Guanqing was surprisingly calm. The weapon in his hand was a snake staff. The powerful Dao runes, mixed with thousands of chilling auras, immediately spread out. There's more than 5 poisons. In the sky above the 10 arenas. Oh no! Wei Xing's expression changed. His spiritual senses discovered that Jiang Xi had already been poisoned as soon as the arena battle began. There were thousands of poisons, but it was not easy to integrate them into one's dermic Dao. At this moment, the 5 poison Dao that Qiao Guanqing cast had already fused 5,000 poisons. Rare dermic Dao, 5 poison Dao level 5 realm. The strength that Qiao Guanqing unleashed was not inferior to Jiang Xi's. Could it be that Jiang Xi has no fate with the top 10? Wei Xing could not help but worry for Jiang Xi. With this defeat, he could only enter the Purple Heaven sect's second heaven. Below, almost instantly, Jiang Xi approached the shocked Qiao Guanqing. Under the Gale domain, with Jiang Xi's speed, the other party had no chance to react. After all, this combat arena was only tens of thousands of square kilometers in length and width. Whoosh! With a slash of his sword, Qiao Guancheng suddenly dissipated like a bubble. Oh no! Jiang Xi was shocked. The Qiao Guancheng in front of him was actually an illusion. He's poisoned. Jiang Xi reacted immediately. The Tao of Fire descended instantly. In addition to the Gale domain, the wind helped the fire. However, these attacks were not targeted at Qiao Guancheng, but at himself. Because fire suppressed poison, Jiang Xi's body was being roasted by the Tao of Fire. The pain of being in purgatory filled his mind. His skin and flesh were quickly burned, and many of his bones were clearly visible. This method was very dangerous. If he did not control it well, he would be burned to death. However, the poison that had silently entered his body was also burned to ashes. Crash, the space in front of Jiang Xi shattered like a water curtain. Now's the time. He revealed his eerie white bony arm, holding a long sword, and suddenly stabbed out. What? He actually cured my poison. That's a Dao technique that combines 5,000 types of strange poisons. Qiao Guancheng, who had already attacked Jiang Xi's side, was shocked. Qi! The sword pierced through the space and pierced Qiao Guancheng's body. Jiang Xi won. Swoosh! The two figures reappeared on the green jade platform. Damn it, damn it! Damn it! Qiao Guancheng roared unwillingly and smashed the ground with force. If he lost this round, he could only enter the second heaven. However, his strength was qualified to enter the third heaven. The difference of one level was like the difference between heaven and earth. On the other hand, Jiang Xi breathed a sigh of relief. It was a close call and he almost lost. It's really impossible to guard against poison-related Dao techniques. If the poison was detoxified a little slower, Qiao Guancheng would have burned him to death. Looking at his unscathed body, Riverward chuckled. Fortunately, be it the Qingyun Dao trial or the arena battle, the injuries he suffered were all temporary. Once the battle was over, his body would recover. In the sky above the green jade platform, Wei Xing also breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Jiang Xi's reaction was quick and ruthless enough. He thought of burning himself with leaf fire to detoxify the poison in his body. He smiled and looked at the 5 poisons old ghost who was not far away. However, this time, he did not go over to engage in a verbal exchange. It was not worthwhile. The 5 poisons old ghost's face was extremely sullen. The disciple he valued the most actually lost. What a ruthless little guy. He sighed. Faced with such a result, he was speechless. Not only was Jiang Xi strong, he was also so ruthless to himself. Against such a ruthless person, his disciple deserved to lose. Chapter 333. Very quickly, the 10 arena battles had all ended. The victors were the 10 strongest geniuses of this year's 9 Zones Genius Tournament. This time, not only were there golden rankings, but the Skyspan River diagram had also spread their appearances throughout the 9 Zones Dao Alliance. Ji Wei, Yan Jiufeng, Mo Hong, Mu Ning, Jiang Xie, Li Xianxian, Feng Lu, Lin Ling Er, Quang Lang, and Xiang Nantian. The 10 of them stood in a row. Immortal Ilyang stood in the starry sky and chuckled. Very good. Your performance just now has proven your strength. However, the competition is cruel. If you want better treatment and resources, you'll have to continue to work hard. Next up is the 5th round of matches. The victors will advance, and the losers will withdraw. This time, the arrangement of the matches, he purposely paused here. Apart from Ji Wei, the 10 strongest geniuses of the human race were all nervous. At the same time, they were all silently praying that they could not meet that freak, Ji Wei. They were already in the top 10, and the 3 spots for the 4th heaven of the Purple Heaven sect were right in front of them. If they met that freak, they would be gone. We'll draw lots to decide. Immortal Ilyang continued. Draw lots, fuck. The geniuses, including Jiang Xi, were all speechless. they still had to be nervous. This arrangement was completely based on luck. Then, Immortal Ilyang waved his sleeve. A wooden box that blocked out spiritual sense appeared in front of everyone. There were 5 pairs of balls inside, and each pair was marked with the same number. The 2 who drew the same number would fight each other. The 10 of them stepped forward to draw lots. Ji Wei was the first, and he expressionlessly took out a ball. The number was 5. Thus, the other 9 became even more nervous. Second, Yen Jiufeng. The number was 1. Third, Mo Hong. The number was 3. Fourth, Mu Ning. The number was 5. Whoosh! The crowd of Dao integration experts and geniuses instantly became lively. As a Dao integration expert of the Pale Blue Star region, Wei Sheng could only shake his head with a wry smile. Mu Ning's luck was too bad. In this year's 9 Zones Genius Tournament, there were 3 geniuses who cultivated special Daos of heaven and earth, Ji Wei, Mu Ning, and Mo Hong. This could be seen from the fact that the Purple Heavens sect had given 3 spots for the 4th heaven. Everyone had high hopes for these 3 geniuses. Now, 2 of them have met. The loser would lose the opportunity to fight for a place in the 4th heaven. No matter how he looked at it, Mu Ning was going to lose. The remaining 6 geniuses who had yet to draw their lots let out sighs of relief. Jiang Xi patted Mu Ning on the shoulder and comforted him. "Good luck, little brother." She wasn't gloating over his misfortune. She was sincerely comforting him. But Mu Ning was very calm. He smiled and said, "Didn't you say so? It's not time to admit defeat yet. Good luck." Jiang Xi encouraged. Then, Jiang Xi's group of 6 also finished drawing lots. 10 people and 5 matches were announced. Ji Wei, Mu Ning, Yen Jiufeng, Lin Lingren, Mo Hong, Li Xianxian, Jiang Xi, Wild Wave, Xiang Nantian and Feng Lu, Wild Waves. Jiang Xi didn't underestimate his opponent. He would treat any opponent seriously. "Jiang Xi, pay attention to Quang Lang," Mu Ning reminded. "Quang Lang." Jiang Xi's expression changed slightly, and he glanced at the young man with snow-white hair. According to the information that Earth had sent him previously, Quang Lang cultivated an ordinary Dao technique, the mystic water Dao, and he had already reached the 8th realm. Thinking about it carefully, it seemed that his performance didn't quite match his name. He was neither wild nor reckless, and he was inconspicuous. Besides, he had rushed up from the 360th place in the Qingyun Dao trial. There were only a few people who could do that. In general, Quang Lang was the steady type. Be it the Qingyun Dao trial or the 3 rounds of the arena battle. He barely passed the top 10 out of 20. That was the problem. The 8th realm of the ordinary Dao of heaven and earth was only equivalent to the 4th realm of the rare Dao of heaven and earth. The strength of such a Dao technique was definitely the lowest among the top 10. In fact, the 10 people who lost just now were stronger than Quang Lang in Dao techniques. He entered the top 10 with the mystic water Dao. Jiang Xi immediately became wary. Not simple. In the sky above the arena. This Quang Lang is not simple. Wei Sheng sighed softly. Yes, he entered the top 10 with only an ordinary Dao of heaven and earth of the 8th realm. Such a situation has never happened in the past hundreds of thousands of years. Other Dao integration powerhouses chimed in. I've specially checked his information. Before the 9 Regions Genius Battle, this kid had lived on a remote planet in the 9 Regions Genius Battle. There's very little information about him. A Dao integration powerhouse from the 9 Nether Star region frowned slightly. Quang Lang was from the 9 Nether Star region. While everyone was thinking about this, the 5th round of the arena battle began. Jiang Xi and the other 10 people appeared in the 5 arenas. Each arena was still tens of thousands of square kilometers in size and was shrouded in an array formation barrier. Since the competition had progressed to this point, no one bothered to bicker before the competition. They were all the top geniuses of the human race and wouldn't be affected by bickering at all. They attacked directly. Quang Lang's previously silent posture suddenly changed, and he began to laugh wildly. I've endured it for so long, and now I can finally attack with all my might. Jiang Xi, you are qualified to see my strongest means. Frost. Woo! Suddenly, ice and frost raged in the arena, sweeping and howling like ghosts wailing and wolves howling. This is a rare Taoist technique, the Frost Dao. And it's already at the 6th realm. This kid hit it too well. This Taoist technique is almost the same as the other top 10 geniuses. And he has an ordinary Taoist technique, the Mystic Water Dao, at the 8th realm. I just don't know if he has fused his Taoist techniques. The Frost Dao evolved from a water-type Taoist technique. He has cultivated it to such a high level. It's impossible that he hasn't fused it. The Dao integration powerhouses were shocked by Kuang Lang's sudden outburst. Jiang Xi is in danger. Wei Xing let out a long sigh. He had thought that the two geniuses of the Blue Star region could still strive to enter the top 5. However, Mu Ning encountered Ji Wei, and Jiang Xi encountered another person who hid his strength so well. Among the geniuses in this competition, only Jiang Xi had fused Taoist techniques. Now there was another one. Chapter 334. On the contrary, in this narrow space, the power of Dao techniques such as the Dao of Frost could be exerted to a greater extent. Therefore, when the 6th level of the Dao of Frost descended, Jiang Xi's Dao of Fire and Gale domain were suppressed within 100 meters of his body. The power of Dao runes and domain couldn't get out at all. Kill! Kuang Lang shouted. The frost saber slashed out with a majestic aura. Jiang Xi's figure flickered. Under the situation of wind and fire, he constantly changed his position in the roaring frost arena. He was looking for an opportunity to get close to his opponent. His speed wanted to reach the extreme. But then, crack! Frost quickly condensed around Jiang Xi, limiting his range of movement. At this moment, Kuang Lang's saber slashed out and attacked in front of him. Clang! 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 Jiang Xi's sword light flashed continuously, blocking Kuang Lang's frost saber. He can actually block my Dao of Frost. Kuang Lang's expression changed slightly. The opponent's strength exceeded his expectations. Can I only use that move? Kuang Lang's eyes focused. Although he was arrogant, his mind was extremely calm and clear. The frost saber suddenly had an additional Dao rune like ripples of water. Dao of Mystic Water. Then, the saber slashed out again. Like a frost dragon, flying and roaring, it swept through the arena. Jiang Xi's space of movement was completely restricted. This move could only be blocked, not dodged. Sure enough, he also knows the Dao technique fusion technique. Jiang Xi was somewhat helpless. He had already expected this. The rare 6th level of the Dao of Frost. The ordinary 8th level of the Dao of Mystic Water. The power of the fusion was not inferior to his 3 great Dao technique fusion technique. It's not time to admit defeat. Jiang Xi remained calm. His strongest attack was also used again. With the sword domain as the core, the Dao of Fire and Gale domain were all integrated into it. 3 great Dao techniques fusion. A sword suddenly slashed out a dark red sword shadow, like a gust of wind, pierced through the space and passed through the frost. Boom! Deafening booms continuously reverberated within the combat arena. Another person was left standing, and another had fallen. Kuang Lang won, but his expression was very ugly. He looked at the silver-white armor on his body. This was a battle armor formed by the fusion of the Dao of Frost and the Dao of Mystic Water. It was his strongest defense. However, at this moment, there was a hole in the chest of the armor, a fatal point. If it wasn't for the Dao of Ice restraining wind and fire, I would have been the one to fall. Kuang Lang's expression was complicated. Whoosh! Jiang Xi returned to the green jade platform and shook his head. What a pity, what a pity. His Dao technique just happened to be countered by the wild waves. The Dao of Fire and the Gale domain couldn't unleash their full power. In terms of the power of their strongest attacks, it was hard to say who was stronger. However, this defeat meant that he had no fate with the fourth layer of heaven of the Purple Heaven sect. My absolute strength is still not enough. If my Li Fire Dao was one level higher, I would have been able to defeat him. Or if I make a breakthrough in either the Gale domain or the Sword domain, even if my Dao and Dharma counter each other, I can still win. Jiang Ci shook his head and pushed his disappointment aside. What a pity, what a pity. Wei Sheng and many other Dao integration experts were also sighing. What Jiang Ci could understand, they could naturally understand as well. Just now, Jiang Ci had almost won. He lost because his Dao and Dharma countered each other. As everyone knew, the more Dao techniques fused, the stronger the power of a Dao fusion technique. Although Jiang Ci's single Dao technique realm was not as high as Kuang Lang's, with the fusion of three major Dao techniques, he was not inferior to Kuang Lang. In addition, the arena battle was not suitable for speed. If it was in a more open place, Jiang Ci might have a higher chance of winning. That young man Mu Ning is also hiding something. Suddenly, a Dao integration expert exclaimed in surprise. Everyone's gaze immediately turned to the arena where Ji Wei and Mu Ning were fighting. At the same time, Jiang Ci and the others, as well as more than 3,000 other geniuses, were also paying attention to this battle. Mu Ning is also hiding his strength. Many people exclaimed. In the arena, the two young men who possessed special Dao of heaven and earth were each displaying their own techniques. When the Dao of the void descended, the void had already shattered. Ji Wei's body split into thousands, shuttling through the various fragment spaces. The long sword in his hand strangely appeared around Mu Ning. But Mu Ning did not move, playing his bamboo flute. The faint sound of the flute spoke of the silence and emptiness of the night. Fourth song, Full Moon. Jiang Ci's eyes flashed. He could also tell through the array formation barrier of the arena. The full moon song that Mu Ning was playing now was stronger and of a higher realm than the last time they fought. This was the 5th level of the special Dao of life, equivalent to the 10th level of the rare Dao of heaven and earth, a complete rare Dao of heaven and earth. It far surpassed the other geniuses except for Ji Wei. Facing Ji Wei's surprise attack, Mu Ning's flute suddenly turned lower. Boom boom boom. Close to 10,000 translucent feet appeared in the arena space, kicking towards the fragmented space. Ji Wei's thousands of figures were instantly reduced to nothingness. The expression of this young man, who had always been cold, also changed. Mu Ning's strength had exceeded his expectations. No one can stop me. Ji Wei regained his calm. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, waves of ripples appeared in the void. The shattered space was like a mirror, becoming even more shattered. Ji Wei's feet moved, and he traveled through the shattered space at an extreme speed. Nearly 20,000 figures appeared in the arena at the same time, each of them exuding a terrifying and strange aura. It was impossible to tell which one was the real one. Everyone was shocked when they saw this. In the starry sky, Immortal Liang shook his head. This young man is going straight for the Dao. He's very ambitious. He wants to step into the Dao immortal realm in one step. This kind of ambition hasn't appeared in many years. Immortal Chuha was also stunned. More than 100 million years. Immortal Liang answered for him. The two immortals were instantly filled with emotions, and they felt a small blow. Below, in the air above the green jade platform. His Dao of nothingness is actually at the 8th level, a Dao integration expert couldn't help but exclaim. It's 2 levels higher than what was shown in the previous trial. What a terrifying young man. A Dao integration expert laughed bitterly. If they were only cultivators who had just entered the Dao integration stage, it would be very difficult for them to easily defeat this young man. The group of Dao integration experts couldn't hide their voices. Therefore, the 3,000 or so geniuses below also heard them. 8 levels of the special Dao of heaven and earth. No wonder he was so far ahead of them. He was a genius that only appeared once in a million years. Everyone felt a deep sense of pressure. Being in the same generation as such a genius. It was an honor, but also a tragedy. Jiang Xi let out a long breath, releasing the pressure in his heart. According to the spiritual power amplitude on the experience panel, he calculated. The maximum amplitude of a rare Tao of heaven and earth was twice that of a normal Tao of heaven and earth. And the maximum amplitude of a special Tao of heaven and earth was twice that of a rare Tao of heaven and earth. In other words, Ji Wei's spiritual power amplitude had already reached 1,600 times. I'm only 370 times. Chapter 335. 370 times versus 1,600 times, the difference was too great. Jiang Xi shook his head and continued to watch the battle. It was obvious that after Ji Wei displayed his strongest move, Mu Ning had lost this battle. Swoosh! Ji Wei reappeared on the green jade platform expressionlessly and then occupied a corner by himself. Mu Ning, on the other hand, was heartless. After leaving the arena, he was beaming with joy. Aren't you disappointed at all? Jiang Xi was very puzzled. The strength that Mu Ning displayed just now was definitely the strongest apart from Ji Wei. He had a chance to enter the fourth heaven of the Purple Heaven sect. What's there to be disappointed about? I've displayed all my strength, but I still lost. There's nothing I can do. As long as I know that I'm still improving, I might catch up one day. Mu Ning's eyes were pure. Speaking of which, how did you lose? He asked Jiang Xi. Jiang Xi had a constipated expression. According to Mu Ning, he belonged to the category of people who had not displayed their strength. He briefly explained the situation of his battle with Kuang Lang. Ah, I think you're the one who should be disappointed the most. Mu Ning laughed. Next, the other 3 arena battles were also carried out at the same time. Once again, it proved that the geniuses who could enter the top 10 of the finals were not simple. Yan Jiufeng, who was ranked 3rd in the trial, had reached the 6th realm of his rare Tao technique, the Tao of Crimson Flames. A pair of fiery fists were incomparably violent, smashing Lin Ling's thousands of puppets into pieces. Even Lin Ling's Tao of Puppets was also a rare Tao technique and was also at the 6th realm. Unfortunately, she was still no match for Yan Jiufeng's fiery fists in the arena. Li Xianxian, who cultivated the rare Tao technique, the Tao of Charm, was dressed in a light muslin and was extremely seductive. Her every frown and smile made one's blood boil. But coincidentally, she met Imo Hong, who cultivated the Tao of Righteousness. The scholarly Imo Hong displayed the Tao of Righteousness, a special Tao technique, to the extreme. Although it was only at the 4th realm, it perfectly countered the rare Tao of Charm of the 6th realm in the battle between the scholar and the fox. The scholar won in the end. The final battle between Blood Boy and Feng Lu was much more ordinary. The two of them cultivated the rare Tao techniques, the Tao of Blood Fury and the Tao of Gale respectively. Both of them were at the 5th level. Unfortunately, in terms of killing, Blood Child's Blood Fiend Tao was superior. Furthermore, Blood Boy gave off the feeling that he had walked out of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. He had rich combat experience. There was madness in his eyes, but he was extremely determined. Jiang Xi seemed to see the figure of old ancestor Qing Xian in the Blood Child. He did not forget the threat that had been lurking in the dark. Blood Child was very similar to old ancestor Qing Xian, but the latter was slightly stronger. In addition, through this battle, Jiang Xi had also witnessed the power of the Gale Path in advance and learned a lot. On the arena, Xue Tong's 10,000 blades struck out and killed Feng Lu. At this point, the top 5 had all appeared. Ji Wei, Yan Jiufeng, Imo Hong, Kuang Lang, and Blood Child. The 5 of them had different expressions. Some were cold, some were lively, some were indifferent, some were arrogant and some were crazy. Immortal Yi Liang had a kind smile on his face as he spoke again. The 5 battles were very exciting. You are all the most talented geniuses of the human race in this era. However, as I said before, resources are limited. The 5 of you who win will enter the final round of the round-robin competition. Instead, they seemed to be waiting for something. In the starry sky, a figure wearing blood-red armor silently appeared. This person had an iron-blooded aura, and he emitted a powerful aura, as if he faintly merged with the entire starry sky. It was true Lord Iron Mountain, who had appeared once before the finals. Greetings, true Lord Iron Mountain. The 2 immortals, 3,600 Dao integration experts, and 3,600 young geniuses all bowed in unison. True Lord Iron Mountain's resolute face scanned the crowd, and his hoarse voice resounded throughout the starry sky. Very good. After 10 years, the strongest geniuses of the human race have been selected. This year's finals of the 9 Regions Genius Tournament is the most exciting one in tens of thousands of years. According to the rules, the 3613600, 11 to 360, 4 to 10, and top 3 will enter the top 4 heavens of the Purple Heavens sect. In terms of cultivation resources, the Purple Heavens sect is the best in the 9 regions of the Dao Alliance. I hope that after you enter the Purple Heavens sect, you can use these resources to continue cultivating diligently. 10,000 years later or 100,000 years later, you will be able to see your figures in the forest of human powerhouses. His words made the hearts of the 3,600 geniuses surge with emotion. 10,000 years, 100,000 years. In other words, they had to at least reach the Dao integration stage. No, the Dao integration stage was too low. True Lord Iron Mountain's expectations for them were obviously above the Tribulation Transcender stage. True Lord Iron Mountain continued, next, report your locations. A year later, I will send people to your planets to bring you to the Dao Alliance's heavenly court, and from there, you will go to the ancient Dao origin world. You should also properly bid farewell to your families, as this will be a long cultivation journey. Chapter 336. Planet Songlan, Waterfront City, Lil P Manor. Jiang Ci woke up from his meditation in a cultivation room covered by a defensive formation. His spiritual sense left the sky-piercing mountain river diagram. It's finally over. Jiang Ci let out a long sigh. He didn't leave the cultivation room immediately. His emotions were a little complicated. Before opening the sky-piercing mountain river diagram, Immortal Yi Liang had said something when the 3,600 geniuses reported their coordinates. This made everyone understand why true Monarch Iron Mountain had said, this is a long journey. It's going to be a long journey of cultivation. He wants them to bid farewell to their families. Because it was indeed a long journey. Next, the 3,600 geniuses would head to the ancient Dao origin world to cultivate for 30 years. It was worth mentioning that the ancient Dao origin world had a mystical place. The flow of time was different from that of the original universe. 30 years in the ancient Dao origin world was equivalent to 108 years in the original universe. By the time they left the ancient Dao origin world, more than 100 years would have passed. However, this wasn't the end. Next, they would enter the Purple Heaven sect's 9th heaven to cultivate. Just like Li Bai entering the Dao Alliance's flowing time hall, they couldn't leave easily if they didn't succeed in their cultivation. Once I leave, I don't know when I'll be back again. Jiang Ci shook his head and buried these emotions in his heart. He stood up and walked out of the cultivation room. As soon as he opened the door, he saw Jiang Daoda standing in front of the door. She was pleasantly surprised and smiled. Big brother, is it okay to congratulate me this time? Top 10, barely. Jiang Ci pretended to be deep in thought. Ha, you're bragging again. Let's go. We haven't seen each other for 10 years. Let's have some fun. Jiang Ci didn't continue arguing with her. He pulled her along and was about to go shopping. However, Jiang Daoda didn't follow. Big brother, old Ian already told me. Jiang Daoda was very calm. What did he say? Jiang Ci turned around to take a look about the ancient Dao origin world. Old Ian said that time passes very slowly there. 1 year is equivalent to 3. 6 years in the original universe. Jiang Xi fell silent. Will the next time we meet again be 100 years later? Jiang Dudu asked again. Yes. Jiang Xi sighed softly. Roar. That's great. Jiang Dudu suddenly became excited. Seeing the confusion on Jiang Xi's face, Jiang Dudu laughed. Allow me to keep you in suspense. You'll know in 100 years. Jiang Xi felt helpless. Why was this reaction different from what he had expected? However, he did not pursue the matter. In any case, the two of them could communicate with one another using their communication beads. Immortal Yi Liang had already told everyone that the ancient Tao origin world was also within the range of the Eye of Heaven. In the end, the two of them didn't go shopping. Jiang Dudu had gone to deal with the matters of the Star Trade Group. She had placed great importance on the Mountain Sea Star Trade. With the rise of Jiang Xi in the 9 Regions Genius Tournament, the business of Mountain and Sea Star Trade in the Pale Blue Star region was getting better and better. With more business, there would naturally be more things to do. Therefore, Jiang Xi was left alone to guard Lil Pi Manor. I can't relax in this 1 year. Jiang Xi entered a state of cultivation again. The arena battles in the final stage of the 9 Regions Genius Tournament had made him fully aware of this point. Some geniuses were not that bad even if they did not use cheats. Talent was a cheat to begin with. Of course, if the cultivation time was taken into account, then no one could compare to him. He had cultivated for less than 50 years, but he was already comparable to those geniuses who had cultivated for hundreds of years. It was truly heaven-defying. In addition, apart from these realizations, Jiang Xi also discovered a problem that was worth paying attention to. After my spiritual consciousness enters the sky-piercing mountain and river painting, my body will be in a state of meditation and cultivation. I won't be able to refine spiritual objects to obtain large amounts of spiritual qi. As a result, I won't be able to use the experience points panel to quickly increase my cultivation or Tao experience. If I encounter a similar situation in the future and am in danger, then I'll be in trouble. The experience points panel will be greatly reduced. During the 5 years of the Qingyun Dao trial, he had been thinking about this problem. He had to think of a way to refine spiritual objects at any time and place so that he could increase his cultivation whenever he wanted. After pondering for a moment, Jiang Xi came up with an answer. Avatar. In layman's terms, it was an avatar. In Master's inherited memories, there are many secret techniques and strange techniques, among which is the method to refine an avatar. I can be sure that the cultivation levels of the main body and the avatar are definitely not the same. It might be possible to use Tao techniques. The only problem is that I don't know if the experience points panel can be used on the avatar. Regardless of whether it succeeds or not, I have to give it a try. I can take advantage of this 1 year to refine an avatar. Jiang Xi quickly went through these ideas in his mind. After making a decision, he began to prepare to implement it. Refining an avatar was not as simple as splitting the body in half with a crack. It was not as simple as plucking a strand of hair. Those were all great mystical abilities. At least, Jiang Xi did not find any in Daoist Ge's inherited memories. I need the Origin Enlightening Spirit Pearl as a carrier for the avatar. I also need the Spirit Accumulation Fruit to restore my spiritual consciousness. Daoist Ge's avatar method was to first refine a new body with the help of external objects. Then, he would separate a part of his spiritual consciousness and inject it into it. After nourishing it, he would finally refine it into an avatar. It's just that these two things are rare. It's very difficult to buy them outside with money. Thinking of this, Jiang Xi smiled. He might have worried in the past, but there was no need for that now. He took out the communication pearl and moved his spiritual consciousness. The communication pearl projected a three-dimensional phantom. The Eye of Heaven was equivalent to a heavenly network that covered the entire universe. Using the communication pearl, one could connect to this heavenly network. However, ever since he stepped into the starry sky, Jiang Xi used the communication function of the heavenly network and rarely used other functions. Enter the Purple Heaven sect's treasure pavilion. With the control of Jiang Xi's mind, the three-dimensional phantom in front of him changed into a virtual mall. Only the disciples of the Purple Heaven sect could enter the treasure pavilion of the Purple Heaven sect. And he was now a disciple of the third heaven of the Purple Heaven sect. His privileges were second only to those of the fourth heaven. There was no problem. Search for the Origin Enlightening Spirit Pearl and the Spirit Accumulation Fruit. Jiang Xi didn't browse other items but directly found what he needed. In the three-dimensional phantom virtual mall, almost instantly, two items appeared. Origin Enlightening Spirit Pearl, 50 points for one. It's a special magic treasure with no attributes. It's usually used to refine an avatar. Only disciples of the second heaven and above can buy it. Spirit Accumulation Fruit, 10 points for one. It can heal spiritual consciousness injuries below the unification stage. Only disciples of the first heaven and above can buy it. Note, 1 point equals 100 top-grade spirit crystals. The treasure pavilion of the Purple Heaven sect seemed to know that it was Jiang Xi's first time here, so it specifically reminded him how to exchange points and spirit crystals. Jiang Xi looked at his account balance again. Balance, 10,000. 12 top-grade spirit crystals. After conversion, it was only 100 points. It's really shady. Chapter 337. Account balance, 10,000. 12 Supreme-Grade Spirit Crystals. 10,000 Supreme-Grade Spirit Crystals was one of the rewards for Jiang Xi winning the 9 Regions Genius Battle. After the 9 Regions Genius Battle ended, the Purple Heaven sect transferred the money to his account in the Tao Alliance Crystal Bank. As for the 12 Supreme-Grade Spirit Crystals, he had saved them in the Tao Alliance Crystal Bank. 60 points is equivalent to 6,000 Supreme-Grade Spirit Crystals, which is equivalent to 6 billion inferior-grade Spirit Crystals. Jiang Xi's heart skipped a beat. He still had to buy what he needed. He filled in the address, completed the debit, and waited for the express delivery. Not only did he need to refine a clone, but Jiang Xi also knew that he needed to upgrade his equipment. The superior-grade spirit artifact long sword could not keep up with his strength. During the 9 Regions Genius Battle, he had only materialized supreme-grade spirit artifacts in the Tongtian Mountain River painting. Therefore, he changed his equipment in the Purple Heaven sect's treasure pavilion. He bought a supreme-grade spirit artifact long sword with 10 points, which was still very similar to the Killing Shadow sword. He bought a supreme-grade spirit artifact battle suit with 20 points. After spending these 2 items, he spent another 3,000 supreme-grade spirit crystals. He had just received the 10,000 supreme-grade spirit crystals from the 9 Regions Genius Battle, but he had already spent 9,000 of them, 9 billion inferior-grade spirit crystals. It was equivalent to 9 mountains and seas star markets. Jiang Dudu had to work hard for nearly 200 years, it's all in terms of strength. It's not a loss at all. Jiang Xi comforted himself. While waiting for the express delivery, he received thousands of requests for visits and invitations. They were all from the top immortal Tao sects and ancient forces in the Kanglan Star Zone and the neighboring star zones. Jiang Xi only picked a few important ones, such as the Tsangyan sect master Wu Kuei, the Four Symbols sect master Ishan, and the Tao Alliance Heavenly Court's Kanglan Star Law Enforcement Commander Earth. Everyone gathered in Daoda Manor for a day and then left. Jiang Xi's status now was different from 10 years ago. In comparison, he was not inferior to the leaders of the major forces who were in the late-stage Essence Soul realm. Moreover, he had more room to rise. During this gathering, the Tsangyan sect master Wu Kuei also fulfilled the promise he made to the public after the Qingyun Dao trial ended. At that time, Jiang Xi had obtained second place in the trial. Wu Kuei promised to give Jiang Xi one of the life galaxies under the Tsangyan sect's actual control. Jiang Xi didn't decline. He took the astrolabe and started picking. In the end, he chose a galaxy called the Silver Platter Galaxy without batting an eyelid. This was a medium-life star system with more than 40,000 life planets. Wu Kuei didn't say anything either. He immediately applied to the Heavenly Court of the Tao Alliance to transfer control of the Silver Plate star system to Jiang Ci. Jiang Ci changed the name of the Silver Plate galaxy to the Milky Way galaxy, because it was originally the Milky Way galaxy. Among them, the asteroid belt that surrounded the solar system was located in the Milky Way. Why did Daoist Gu leave behind the interstellar coordinates of the blue planet in his inherited memories? It was because Earth was located in the blue star region. This did not arouse Wu Kuei's suspicion. After all, the asteroid belt had existed for a long time. It was just a slightly mysterious celestial body in the universe. Only some adventurous space hunters would pay attention to it. A top immortal sect like the Tsangyan sect, which ruled more than 80,000 life star systems, rarely paid attention to such small matters. As a result, Jiang Ci was promoted from the Lord of Earth to the Lord of the Milky Way. The actual jurisdiction of the Milky Way galaxy was handed over to Jiang Daodu. In the future, this would be the headquarters of the Mountain Sea Star Trade. After dealing with these human affairs, in just 3 days, a courier came to his door. Of course, it wasn't an ordinary courier. It was a late-stage nascent soul cultivator. He was dressed formally and looked very serious. "Senior brother Jiang Ci, this is your thing." Judging from his words, the other party seemed to be a disciple of the Purple Heaven sect. However, Jiang Ci didn't delve into it. After signing for it, the other party quickly left. Next, Jiang Ci returned to Earth alone and began to refine a clone. At the same time, he didn't stop deducing Dao techniques. The Sword domain and the Gale domain were the key points of the next breakthrough. In the blink of an eye, a year had passed. Earth, Kunlun Mountain Range, Jade Pool Secret Realm. Jiang Ci passed through the stone door at the lake at the top of the Tongtian Mountain and came out of the second cave of the Jade Pool Secret Realm. "I don't know where the Tongtian Tower is hidden." Jiang Ci shook his head. In fact, 20 years ago, when Earth was facing the crisis of the Qing Xian sect, he, Xian Tian, and Li Baibai had entered the second cave of the Jade Pool Secret Realm to find a way to deal with the head of the Qing Xian sect. Then, they found out that the Tongtian Tower had disappeared. The three of them also looked for it for a while. But in the end, they found nothing and couldn't find it. Moreover, Jiang Ci had another discovery. With his strength at the nascent soul stage, he couldn't see through the second cave of the Jade Pool Secret Realm. His range of activity was limited to the green Jade Pool Lake. When he reached the edge of the lake, he couldn't get out. There was a formation enchantment that he couldn't detect. Mysterious. Now, his actual combat power had already reached the nascent soul stage, but he still couldn't see through it. In this year, Jiang Ci came here many times. He wanted to re-enter the Tongtian Tower and ask Anai Shang what the Tongtian Mountain River diagram had to do with the Tongtian Tower. Not only the name, but also the Lingwan Road and the Qingyun Path. They were too similar. Looks like I can only wait until my cultivation reaches the nascent soul stage. According to Anai Shang, there would only be great benefits for him when he reached the nascent soul stage. In the short term, there was no chance. He was about to set off for the ancient Tao source world, and he didn't know when he would be back. Then, Jiang Ci returned to Xian Tian City. In a secret dark room, his 3 servants, Hu Yan, Chu Zhe, and Qiu Hong, were still guarding here. "Lord Jiang Ci." The 3 of them bowed respectfully. "After I leave, I'll leave Earth to the 3 of you. If you encounter any problems that you can't solve, you can send a message to me or my elder brother," Jiang Ci said in a deep voice. "Don't worry, Lord." Jiang Ci nodded. In the past 10 years of the 9 regions genius battle, the number of golden core cultivators on Earth had increased by a lot. However, there were still no nascent soul cultivators. Even if there were nascent soul cultivators, Hu Yan and the other 2 could easily deal with them. After all, Hu Yan's talent was not bad. He could comprehend a Dao domain at the golden core stage. Now, Hu Yan was already at the nascent soul stage and was even stronger. After giving these instructions, Jiang Xi's spiritual consciousness scanned the vibrant land of Earth. Then, he entered the teleportation array with some sadness. The space changed, and his figure appeared in the main hall of the moon's moon palace. He didn't leave the dilapidated palace immediately. Instead, he entered an inconspicuous side hall, where he had set up an array formation. Inside the formation array was a handsome young man with the same figure and appearance as him, main body. Clone. The two of them spoke at the same time and laughed at the same time. Of course, this was a self-directed conversation. Their thoughts were connected, and they only had one consciousness. This feeling is quite strange. One consciousness could control two bodies. At the same time, the two bodies could do different things. Chapter 338. His main body and avatar stood opposite each other. Experience panel. Jiang Xi muttered in his heart. Cultivation, main body, nascent soul, 106 million/1, 06 million in the later stage, avatar, golden core, 397500397500 in the later stage, Dao technique, Dao of fire, 50 million/50 million in the 10th stage, Gale domain, 5 million/5 million in the 10th stage, sword domain, 10 million/10 million in the 10th stage, amplitude, 1000 times, Dao of fire, deduction, 10,000 experience points per attempt cultivation technique, purple firmament sword manual, peacock visualization experience points, 500. 3 months ago, his avatar was successfully refined. The result was almost the same as Jiang Xi's previous imagination. His avatar could also use the experience panel. From the data on the panel, it could be seen that the cultivation of his main body and avatar were not connected, but they could share Dao techniques. After all, Dao technique comprehension belonged to the soul. The consciousness of the two bodies was unified. If a golden core cultivator has this Dao technique, he should be able to kill an invincible nascent soul cultivator with a slap, right? This thought popped up in Jiang Xi's mind. After the avatar was successfully refined, he found that the experience panel could be used, so he used spiritual items to quickly increase the avatar's cultivation. As it already had the spiritual sense of a perfected nascent soul cultivator, it did not need to nourish and refine its spiritual sense. It could directly reach the perfected golden core stage. As for the later nascent soul stage, it had to be nourished by the golden core. There's no rush. I'll nurture it slowly. When my avatar reaches the nascent soul stage, it can really be used. Jiang Xi was full of expectations. In any case, it would only take 10 years to complete. When he entered the ancient Dao source world, it would actually only be 2 years. In addition, not only had his avatar's cultivation reached the perfected golden core stage. In this year, Jiang Xi had refined a large number of spiritual items. With the help of spiritual energy, he used the experience panel to raise his Dao of fire to the 10th stage, a perfected rare Dao of heaven and earth. Its amplitude had also reached 1000 times. If I had this Dao technique strength a year ago, I should have been able to get into the top 3. Unfortunately. Jiang Xi shook his head. At that time, the top 10 geniuses, except for Ji Wei, far surpassed the others. Only Mu Ning's Dao technique strength was equivalent to a perfected rare Dao of heaven and earth. Jiang Xi knew that there were no regrets. He could only continue moving forward and catch up later. Where there are gains, there are losses. The Dao of fire has reached perfection, but there are problems with the fusion of the 3 Daos. Thinking of this, Jiang Xi felt helpless again. In the past year, he had tried countless times to use the Dao fusion technique, but he had failed every time. He also had a rough guess as to the reason for his failure. There are 3 levels to Dao: true meaning of the Dao, Dao domain, and Dao of heaven and earth. When one cultivates the Dao of heaven and earth to perfection, this Dao technique will be equivalent to a flawless state. If I want to fuse it with other Daoist techniques, the difficulty will greatly increase. His master, Daoist Gu, did not explain much about the Dao fusion technique in his inherited memories. Because Daoist Go specialized in array formations, he did not study much in terms of Dao fusion. Therefore, Jiang Ci could only wait to find out the answer in the future. The Dao fusion technique was a wonderful technique to increase one's strength, so he definitely wouldn't give it up. Jiang Ci pondered for a moment and put this thought aside for the time being. However, after reaching perfection in the Tao of fire, I can consider using Tao refinement to cultivate a primordial spirit. In order to cultivate a primordial spirit, one not only had to reach perfection in the nascent soul realm. One also had to possess a perfected Tao of heaven and earth to cultivate a primordial spirit. After completing this process, the primordial spirit would undergo a qualitative change and condense into a primordial spirit. Similarly, this was also a process that consumed time. It could be as short as 100 years or as long as 1,000 years. It depended on the strength of the Tao of heaven and earth cultivated. The speed of cultivating a primordial Tao of heaven and earth was definitely not as fast as cultivating a rare Tao of heaven and earth. And rare Tao of heaven and earth was naturally not as good as unique Tao of heaven and earth. The body of my main body and my clone are different, but the soul and Tao technique are interlinked. The process of cultivating a primordial spirit can be left to my clone. Jiang Ci smiled. The first use of the doppelganger was revealed. Next, his main body would cultivate in the ancient Tao origin world for 30 years. But his clone in the outside world would have 108 years. This was equivalent to his cultivation speed increasing by 3.6 times. It was worth mentioning that this method of using the difference in the flow of time between the main body and the clone to cultivate was not common in the cultivation world. Riverward also understood this principle because it was rare to see a place where the flow of time was different from that of the original universe. Currently, he had only heard of the ancient Tao origin world. And the qualification to enter the ancient Tao origin world was obviously very difficult. 3,600 people were finally selected from the hundreds of millions of people, but they could only enter the ancient Tao origin world to cultivate for 30 years. One could imagine how difficult this was. Pale Blue Planet, Waterfront City. A late-stage nascent soul cultivator arrived at Bean Bean Manor. This person had the appearance of a young man, and the supreme-grade spirit artifact battle armor on his body was embroidered with purple patterns. When he saw Jiang Ci, he bowed respectfully. Kuluo greets senior brother Jiang Ci. Jiang Ci hurriedly waved his hand to indicate that there was no need for this. Then, he asked, "You call me senior brother, so you're also a disciple of the Purple Heaven sect?" "Senior brother, I'm a first heaven disciple of the Purple Heaven sect. According to the rules, disciples of lower heavens have to address disciples of higher heavens as senior brother, and immortals of the fifth heaven and above have to address them as martial uncle," Kuluo said with a smile. Jiang Ci was enlightened. So that's how it is. Seniority in the Purple Heaven sect was not determined by cultivation, but by the 9 heavens. Thinking about it, disciples of the first 4 heavens had more than one type of cultivation. There were nascent soul, and Tao integration. If seniority was determined by cultivation, then it would be a mess. I wonder if senior brother has arranged everything here. If so, we can set off now, Kuluo asked. It's almost done. Give me a moment. Jiang Ci nodded. Then, the two of them walked out of the cultivation room. Jiang Daodu, Xian Tian, Wen Yoxin, Wen Feng, and Shen Wansi were standing outside. Jiang Daodu did not say anything. Xian Tian laughed heartily and said, "Jiang Ci, when you get there, you have to cultivate hard. If I catch up with you next time, it will be embarrassing." "Huh, big brother, go ahead." Jiang Ci also laughed. "Take care, martial uncle." Wen Clan's siblings said. "You two have to cultivate hard too. If I come back and see that your cultivation has fallen, I will punish you." Jiang Ci showed the demeanor of an elder. Then, he looked at Shen Wansi and said, "Old Shen, the scale of the Mountain Sea Star trade is getting bigger and bigger. Please help me support your chairman." Shen Wansi nodded vigorously and said, "Jiang Gu, don't worry." Finally, Jiang Xi walked to Jiang Daodu, who had been silent. I'm leaving. Okay. The two of them looked at each other. They did not say much, but their emotions were already intertwined. Jiang Xi rubbed the little girl's hair and smiled like before. Then, he flew away with Kuluo. Jiang Daodu looked at Jiang Xi's back. Her eyes were filled with determination. Brother, you have to come back alive. Otherwise, I will find you even if I have to kill my way to the King of Hell's palace. The same words rang in her heart every time Jiang Xi left. It was like a promise that would never change. Chapter 339. Yoxin, Wenfeng, Old Shen, it's time for us to get to work. Let's do something big. Jiang Dudu waved her little hand, hiding her dejected mood. Let's do something big. The Wen siblings and Shenwansi were all filled with motivation. Xian Tian was relieved to see this. Earlier, he was still worried that Jiang Daodu would be upset or something like that after Jiangxi left. Now that they had something to do, they would temporarily forget their negative emotions. Kid, you have to come back alive. Xian Tian sighed in his heart. Cultivate. Cultivate. We can't let this kid be the only one in the limelight among the three strongest on Earth. Jiang Xi and Kuluo flew to the teleportation hall in Waterfront City. Gong Shi, who had been promoted to captain of the guards, was waiting respectfully in front of the hall. Greetings, Lord Jiang Xi. His exaggerated manner of greeting hadn't changed even though he had been promoted. Gong Shi knew very well that all of this was because of Jiang Xi. This was because his good friend Shenwansi was now working for Jiang Xi. It was because of this relationship that he had been able to obtain the position of captain of the guards in the fiercely competitive Zhangyan sect. Jiang Xi nodded lightly and entered the teleportation array with Kuluo. Kuluo then began to set the teleportation coordinates, his hands constantly forming seals. These seals were extremely profound, and even Jiang Xi couldn't see through them. The teleportation coordinates of the Dao Alliance's Heavenly Court are the Dao Alliance's top secret, Jiang Xi thought to himself. Otherwise, the Purple Heaven sect wouldn't have gone through so much trouble to send people to pick up 3,600 prodigies. At the end of the 9 Regions Genius Tournament, some prodigies had asked this question: why couldn't they teleport to the Dao Alliance's Heavenly Court themselves? Immortal Yi Liang's answer was simple and straightforward: they had to wait until they left the ancient Dao origin world before they were qualified to receive the teleportation coordinates of the Dao Alliance's Heavenly Court. Jiang Xi could vaguely guess the purpose of this. It was most likely to test the identities and loyalty of the 3,600 prodigies. The Heavenly Court of the Dao Alliance was the human race's highest authority. After all, the teleportation coordinates couldn't be casually leaked even in the inherited memories that Daoist Gu had given him. There was no such teleportation coordinate. In fact, he didn't even mention the Dao Alliance or the Heavenly Court, as if there was some sort of taboo topic. While Jiang Xi was thinking about this, Colorado had already set the teleportation coordinates. He cautioned, "Senior apprentice brother, the Heavenly Court of the Dao Alliance is 100 trillion light-years away from here. Even if you use a teleportation formation, it'll still take a very long time. You have to be patient." Jiang Xi nodded gently. It was just teleportation. However, when the teleportation light disappeared, his expression changed. Because there was a strong sense of spatial transformation. Even though he was already at the full circle of the original infant stage, his entire body felt like it was about to be torn apart. Normal interstellar teleportation, even if it was across star zones, would only take 3 to 5 breaths. This time, however, it lasted for half an hour. When these changes subsided and they landed on the ground again, Jiang Xi even felt like vomiting. Blurg, blurg, it wasn't Jiang Xi who was vomiting. Instead, there were many voices coming from the side. The teleportation had already ended, and he appeared on the other side of the teleportation formation. Jiang Xi endured the discomfort and looked up to survey his surroundings. This was a gigantic stone platform. Clouds and mist swirled around it, and he could see several gigantic stone pillars that soared into the sky. At this moment, more than half of the 3,600 prodigies had already arrived. He was quite late. Not far away, many of the weaker prodigies were supporting themselves with pale-faced hands as they retched. This is the Tao Alliance's Heavenly Court's Southern Heavenly Gate teleportation platform. Colorado's voice sounded. Southern Heavenly Gate? Jiang Xi's heart stirred. The first time he had heard of the Tao Alliance's Heavenly Court was many years ago, when he became Daoist Ge's disciple on the first moon. At that time, Daoist Gu had asked him who the master of the Tao Alliance's Heavenly Court was. At first, Jiang Xi didn't pay much attention to the Heavenly Court. Now that he heard the Southern Heavenly Gate, he couldn't help but think of something. This was because there were too many similarities between this and the legends on Earth. Why did the Heavenly Court and the Tao Alliance's Heavenly Court both have Southern Heavenly Gates? Jiang Xi, you're here too. Just as Jiang Xi was in a daze, Mu Ning's voice sounded from the side. The young shepherd boy had also arrived. With his shout, the other prodigies on the teleportation platform all looked over. Jiang Xi. You're here. Yan Jiufeng, Mo Hong, Li Xianxian, Lin Ling and the other top 10 prodigies all greeted Jiang Xi. Even Ji Wei nodded at Jiang Xi. Jiang Xi nodded back at them one by one. Prodigies were mostly proud and aloof. They would only lower their proud and aloof attitude when facing someone with similar talent. After Jiang Xi finished greeting them, Mu Ning continued excitedly. Jiang Xi, I've finally seen the great world I've always dreamed of. This place is too big. I thought it was like the Skyspan Mountain River diagram, the Kanglan continent and the Purple Clouds continent in the starry sky were all illusions. I didn't expect to see such a vast and magical celestial body in the original universe. A continent that's even bigger than a planet. He had a pure personality and never hid anything in his heart. After seeing Jiang Xi, an acquaintance, he could no longer hold back his words. At this moment, Jiang Xi was speechless. His face was filled with disbelief. This was because after the clouds in front of him dissipated with the wind, he realized. This Southern Heavenly Gate teleportation platform was only a floating island. Although the area was very large, it wouldn't be crowded even if millions of people stood there. However, compared to this vast world, the Southern Heavenly Gate teleportation platform seemed very small. Below was a boundless continent with no end in sight. A huge heavenly gate stood at the entrance of the continent. Above the continent, there were countless floating immortal mountains and immortal islands floating in the air. The immortal island where the Southern Heavenly Gate teleportation platform was located was only one of them. Above the immortal mountains and immortal islands, there were layers of 5-colored auspicious clouds supporting them. Palaces and pavilions floated above these 5-colored auspicious clouds. That was where the Tao Alliance's Heavenly Court was located. When he looked up at the sky again, he saw stars circling above the 9 heavens. The huge stars seemed to be right in front of him and within reach. In the horizon, there were 10 suns radiating with scorching light. On the other side, there were 10 great eons radiating with chilling light. These scenes truly illustrated what it meant to have a square sky and a square earth. Could this be the legendary immortal realm? Jiang Xi's throat moved. Astonishment. Beside him, Kuluo chuckled when he saw Jiang Xi's expression. Anyone who came to the Tao Alliance Heavenly Court for the first time would have the same reaction. No one knows if this is the immortal realm, but I once heard from an uncle master in the sect. The continent where the Tao Alliance Heavenly Court is located is more than 100 light-years in length and width. Kuluo sighed. 100 light-years. Jiang Xi was even more astonished. It was larger than 100 solar systems. The universe was indeed mysterious. Such a massive celestial body could not be explained by science. Senior brother, I've completed my mission, so I'll return to the sect first. I wish you success in your cultivation in the ancient Tao origin world. Kuluo smiled. Thank you. Jiang Xi hurriedly expressed his gratitude. Then, Kuluo activated the teleportation platform and left. Spiritual mist condensed from it can be seen everywhere. Look, the five-colored light in the sky is the Tao of heaven and earth. Amazing, truly amazing. My speed of comprehension has increased by dozens of times. The geniuses looked around with excitement. Jiang Xi also felt suffocated by the scene before him. However, he still maintained his usual vigilance and quickly observed his surroundings. He saw that they were currently on a huge platform that towered in the sky. The runes and formations on the surface of the platform were exactly the same as the ones in the Tao Origin Palace. When he looked down, he saw that there was a huge, majestic city below him. The platform was located at the edge of the city. At first glance, this huge city gave people the feeling that it had existed since the beginning of time, as if it had existed since time immemorial. The Tao of heaven and earth was faintly visible in the sky. It glowed with multicolored light and flowed slowly above the huge city like a river. As expected, it was visible to the naked eye. He looked into the distance. It was a gray and misty world, filled with various visible Taoist rhymes. They were accompanied by gray air currents that drifted with the wind. Moreover, the spiritual qi of heaven and earth here was extremely dense. In addition to the spiritual mist, he even saw spiritual liquid condensed from spiritual qi on a small mountain nearby. It formed a small waterfall and converged into a spiritual pool below. At this moment, Immortal Yi Liang said, "All right, stop being so surprised. All right, put away your surprise. You'll be cultivating here for 30 years. You'll have plenty of time to appreciate these. Now, I have a few requests for you." The 3,600 geniuses immediately calmed down. First, be obedient. Second, work hard on your cultivation. Thirdly, and this is the most important thing, survive. After 30 years, I hope that you will still be the same 3,600 geniuses. Not a single one of you will be missing. Immortal Yi Liang had a rare serious expression on his face. The group of geniuses also withdrew their relaxed attitudes, and their attitudes became solemn. They were here to cultivate, not to enjoy the scenery. After saying that, Immortal Yi Liang turned his gaze to the other side of the platform. A gray-robed old man was standing there silently. Immortal Yi Liang said respectfully, "Lord Emissary, I'll leave these youngsters to you. Don't worry." The gray-robed old man chuckled. Jiang Xi and the others were shocked. Only now did they notice the gray-robed old man. They hadn't sensed his existence at all. The gray-robed old man said, "Little guys, follow me." The 3,600 geniuses bowed to Immortal Yi Liang and Immortal Chu He before following the gray-robed old man and flying down to the huge city below. These two immortals were only here to send them off. They didn't have the right to cultivate in the ancient Tao origin world. Immortal Yi Liang asked, "How many do you think will die this time?" Immortal Chu He replied, "This batch is much stronger than the previous batches. About 20% will die. 20%? That's more than 700 people. If you want to become an expert, you don't just need talent. What's more important is your temperament and will." Jiang Xi and the other geniuses followed the gray-robed old man and landed in the huge city. They walked along a wide stone path towards the depths of the huge city. So many little guys came. Based on their cultivation and numbers, they should be the winners of the 9 Regions Genius Battle. 9 Regions Genius Battle. Speaking of which, I was just like them. I barely made it into the top 3,600. Sigh, more than 80,000 years have passed in the blink of an eye. Most of the people from my batch are already dead. Chapter 341. A loud voice came from the sky before fading away. They saw 3 immortals in battle armor flying over them. Their auras were even stronger than Immortal Yi Liang and Immortal Chu He. Jiang Xi and the others were speechless upon hearing their conversation. Dao integration cultivators usually had a lifespan of 10,000 years. Their lifespan would only increase after transcending the tribulation to become an immortal. Their lifespan would increase by 10,000 years after transcending a tribulation. Tribulation transcenders would only have a lifespan of 80,000 years after transcending the seventh tribulation. According to that immortal's words, someone who had lived for 80,000 years was at least an eighth tribulation transcender. Very strong. Jiang Xi, it seems that even the top 10 geniuses of the 9 regions genius tournament aren't guaranteed to reach the immortal realm, Mu Ning said with a serious expression. The path of cultivation is accompanied by too many dangers. The slightest carelessness can lead to death. Jiang Xi nodded lightly. Just like his master, Taoist Gu. This genius who had been valued by the Purple Heavens sect as a Dao integration cultivator had died before becoming an immortal. At this moment, the other geniuses were also thinking about the words of the 3 immortals who had just passed by. They also thought of Immortal Yi Liang's final request, to survive. Everyone's heart sank at the thought of this. When everyone fell silent, the gray-robed old man introduced with a smile. This is Nine Heavens City, the only city in the ancient Dao origin world. The ancient Dao origin world is jointly managed by the 3 schools and 6 sects. Apart from you little fellows, the humans of the 9 regions are the only ones in charge. Other cultivators who have contributed to the ancient Dao origin world will more or less receive some cultivation rights in the ancient Dao origin world. The humans who come here to cultivate will temporarily reside in Nine Heavens City during their cultivation period. The same goes for you for the next 30 years. You'll have to choose a residence. However, you must remember that there are many experts here, and most of them are immersed in cultivation. Don't disturb them, or you'll deserve to be killed. All the geniuses immediately fell silent. Looking at the 2 sides of the street, one could see that the interior of this ancient city was very simple. The buildings on both sides of the street were gray stone houses more than 3 meters tall. Only in the depths of Nine Heavens City could one see some taller buildings. At this moment, many powerful cultivators could be seen sitting cross-legged on the rooftops of the stone houses. They raised their heads and comprehended the way of heaven and earth that was visible to the naked eye. Because these experts were in the midst of cultivation, their bodies naturally emitted waves of powerful pressure. The geniuses were shocked and understood what the gray-robed elder meant. If they disturbed these experts, even if they were killed, they deserved it. That was indeed the case. The qualification to cultivate in the ancient Dao origin world was extremely precious. Moreover, time was limited. No one was willing to waste even a second. The geniuses carefully followed behind the gray-robed elder. Soon, they arrived in the depths of Nine Heavens City, in front of a crude palace. The palace was 1,000 meters tall and about 1,000 kilometers wide. It was also the largest building in the entire city. 3 ancient characters that were completely different from the common language of the Dao Alliance were carved onto the enormous signboard of the palace. However, the meaning of the ancient characters was clearly conveyed to everyone's minds. 9 Firmaments Palace. Jiang Xi pretended to be as shocked as everyone else, but his heart was in turmoil. Because these 3 ancient characters were too similar to the ones in the Jade Lake Secret Realm on Earth. The Jade Lake Secret Realm's Sky-Piercing Mountain and Sky-Piercing Tower had similar ancient characters on their steels. Jiang Xi had already imprinted these ancient characters in his mind. From the structure of the characters, it could be seen that they were from the same era. Nine Heavens Palace is the abode of Dao Lord Nine Heavens. Don't speak loudly after you enter, the gray-robed elder warned. Dao Lord Nine Heavens? The geniuses were shocked. Nine Heavens City, Nine Heavens Palace, and Dao Lord Nine Heavens. Nine Heavens City was the only city in the ancient Dao origin world. Dao Lord Nine Heavens' status was self-evident. Jiang Xi's gaze was also solemn. Immortals were divided into Tribulation Transcender, Dao Immortal, and Dao Ancestor. Immortals in the Dao Immortal stage were called True Immortals. For example, True Immortal Iron Mountain, whom they had met in the Nine Regions Genius Tournament, was a Dao Immortal. And those who had the two words Tao Lord were immortals of the Tao Ancestor stage. Tao Lord 9 Heavens. He must be a powerful cultivator who stood at the peak of the human race. However, why did the gray-robed elder bring them to the abode of such a powerhouse? One of the geniuses couldn't help but ask, Lord Emissary, why are we here? Of course there are benefits. Since someone asked, there's no harm in telling you in advance. The gray-robed elder laughed. His eyes glowed as he said to everyone, you'll be able to obtain cultivation resources in the ancient Tao origin world. Not only is there heaven and earth spirit chi far denser than the original universe, but there's also heaven and earth Tao visible to the naked eye. More importantly, there are inheritances here that the original universe doesn't have. Inheritances? Everyone was shocked. Follow me. The gray-robed elder didn't give a direct answer. He led everyone into Nine Heavens Palace and walked along a stone path. Here, they saw many cultivators. When these cultivators saw the gray-robed elder, they all bowed respectfully and didn't say anything. When they left, they looked enviously at Zhang Xi and the other geniuses. Soon, they arrived at a side hall. There were dozens of simple and unadorned stone pillars in the hall, and they looked very ordinary. Lord Emissary, is this where the inheritances are? Someone asked. This is where the inheritances are chosen. The gray-robed elder shook his head with a smile. He then explained, there's only one reason why the human race can stand at the peak of the universe. It's because we value inheritances. Over the countless years, 44 pinnacle powerhouses have left their inheritances altars in Nine Heavens City to pass down their Tao arts. Pinnacle powerhouses. Someone exclaimed. Then they remembered that they couldn't speak loudly here and hurriedly covered their mouths. Everyone was excited. What was a pinnacle powerhouse? Ji Wei, Yan Jiufeng, Mu Ning, and some other geniuses with extraordinary backgrounds naturally understood what this meant. The so-called pinnacle powerhouses of the human race were at least Tao lords. Jiang Xi's breathing quickened. The further one went on the path of cultivation, the more obvious the importance of Tao arts became. Tao arts cultivation was like walking a path. The Tao of heaven and earth was only a minor Tao. If one followed the minor Tao, they would have a chance to step onto the great Tao. For example, a Tao immortal perfected lord was a cultivator who had walked the complete Tao. A Tao lord was a pinnacle powerhouse on the Tao. The Tao art inheritance left behind by such an expert was the guiding light for one to comprehend the Tao and cultivate. Although I have the experience panel, I still need to deduce and spend countless experience points to advance my Tao arts. If I have the guidance of these inheritances, the success rate of my deduction might be greatly increased. Jiang Xi quickly thought of this and became excited. Chapter 342. Just as everyone was feeling excited about the Tao arts of the peak experts, the old man continued to speak. Nine Heavens City has a total of 44 inheritance altars. Humans who come to the ancient Tao origin world for the first time can choose to cultivate. Regardless of whether you belong to the 3 gates or 6 sects, you can choose one of the altars to comprehend and cultivate. Each opportunity is limited to 10 days. Only 10 days? Yan Jiufeng was an impatient person. He immediately interrupted the gray-robed old man. The gray-robed old man didn't mind. He chuckled and said, 10 days is enough for little fellows like you. Just a glance at the Tao arts of the peak experts can benefit you greatly. It's like eating food. If you eat too much at once, it'll be useless if you can't digest it. The geniuses were enlightened. These stone pillars correspond to the 44 inheritance altars, and each of them contains a Tao art. You have an hour to use your spiritual sense to comprehend the Tao arts, and then choose an altar suitable for you. Now, let's begin. The gray-robed old man smiled again. 1 hour. Everyone didn't dare to waste any time and hurriedly observed the stone pillars. Jiang Xi looked at them one by one, and he could comprehend them with his spiritual sense. This is the moon ice altar. It was as if he had fallen into an illusion. He saw a cold moonlight sprinkle down between heaven and earth. Then he quickly came to his senses. It looks like the Balefulline energy, but it's at an extremely high level. Is it the Balefulline Tao? Or is it the Balefulline Tao? Jiang Ci didn't have time to think about this. He dispersed his thoughts and continued to look at the next pillar. Chaos Origin Altar, Nine Heavens Altar, Void Universe Altar, Azure Lotus Altar, Great Might Altar. He saw a gentle breeze blowing through these altars, and the spring wind and rain gave birth to all living things. He also saw a soaring sword intent tear through the sky and enter his mind. There was a wisp of flame that burned tenaciously. There was also a Buddhist light that illuminated the world. Soon, an hour had passed. Time's up. The old man's voice sounded. Everyone woke up from their observation and comprehension. All of them wished to continue, and their eyes were filled with desire. They had only comprehended a single Tao art from the stone pillars, and they had already gained something. How much would he gain from comprehending and cultivating at the inheritance altar? Line up properly. One by one, tell me your choice. The gray-robed elder smiled. I choose the everlasting altar. I choose the altar of the 9 firmaments. True mystic altar. The geniuses announced their choices one by one. Most of the 44 inheritance altars belonged to peak experts from the 3 gates and 6 sects. Some of them were directly named after the 9 sects. Of course, some weren't. For example, the inheritance altar from Sword's Gate, named the Green Lotus Altar. Jiang Ci followed behind, deep in thought. He was making his final decision. Primordial Chaos, Heavenly Sun, Xianhua, Green Lotus, 4 inheritance altars. The Primeval Chaos Altar is a Wind-type Tao art, the Heavenly Sun and Xianhua are Fire-type Tao arts, and the Green Lotus Altar is a Sword-type Tao art. It just so happens to correspond to the 3 great Taos that I cultivate, Gale, Parting Fire, and Sword Tao. Which one to choose? At present, his attainment in the Leaf Fire Tao was the highest. If he chose the Heavenly Sun Tao or the Torch Altar, his progress would definitely be the fastest. After a moment, it was Jiang Ci's turn to announce his choice. Standing in front of the gray-robed elder, he said, I choose the Green Lotus Altar. After some thought, Jiang Ci had a definite answer. His Sword Tao was still at the Tao domain level. However, it was clear that the core of his Tao art had always been the Sword Tao. Even the Tao fusion technique that he was able to use previously had the Sword Tao as its core. After making his choice, Jiang Ci waited by the side. Mu Ning came over and asked, Jiang Ci, I chose the Creation Altar. What did you choose? Green Lotus, Jiang Ci smiled gently. Oh, that's the Inheritance Altar of Sword's Gate. It's very powerful. It's a pity that there are very few peak experts who cultivate the Life Tao. There's only one creation altar to choose from. Mu Ning was still a straightforward person. He continued, however, I listened carefully just now. Most people chose the Purple Firmament Altar, followed by the Daoming Altar. I don't know why. Jiang Ci's heart skipped a beat. The Purple Firmament Altar was naturally left behind by the peak experts of the Purple Firmament sect. The Daoming Altar was left behind by the peak experts of the Tao sect. Logically speaking, the Tao sect should be the number 1 sect. Why did most people choose the Purple Firmament Altar? Was it because they were all disciples of the Purple Firmament sect? However, this choice did not limit one's sect status. I know this. I once heard from the elders in my family that our Purple Firmament sect's patriarch was once the number 1 expert of the Tao Alliance. Just as the two of them were puzzled, a woman's voice came from the side. They turned around and saw a girl in a red dress. She was the 2nd place of the 9 Regions Genius Tournament, Yan Jiufeng. Back then? Was it? Jiang Ci and Mu Ning had new doubts. I'm not sure about the details. Yan Jiufeng shook her head. Jiang Ci wanted to ask more questions, but the selection of the 3,600 geniuses had finished. The gray-robed elder smiled and said, I just said that each of you has 1 chance to comprehend the altar. Time is precious. Now, let's go to the inheritance altar and truly comprehend and cultivate. The genius's eyes immediately lit up. Soon, they arrived at a large hall in the Nine Clouds Palace. There was a row of tall stone doors in the hall. There were a total of 44 doors. On each stone door, there were ancient words that did not belong to this era. They indicated the location of the altar within the stone door. At the same time, a white-robed elder with a kind face was sitting cross-legged at the side of the hall. Lord Priest, I brought this year's 9 Regions Genius Tournament's youngsters to the inheritance altar to cultivate. May I ask who is free? The gray-robed elder bowed respectfully. I knew that the youngsters were coming, so I'm free today. The white-robed priest smiled. The gray-robed elder smiled and looked at the geniuses. Thank the Lord Priest first, then go in and comprehend. Remember, you only have 10 days. Thank you, Lord Priest. The geniuses bowed in unison. Rise, rise. The white-robed priest nodded with a smile. He had a very good attitude towards the young geniuses of the human race. Then, the 3,600 geniuses entered the stone doors according to their respective inheritance altars. Mu Ning was very happy. He waved his hand at Jiang Xi and entered the creation altar first. Because he was the only one who cultivated the Tao of life, he was very relaxed. In comparison, there were too many geniuses who chose the purple firmament altar and the Tao name altar. One had 600 people, while the other had 500 people. There were not many people in the azure lotus altar, only 9. Most of the geniuses cultivated the Tao of heaven and earth of the 5 elements, followed by the Tao of time and Tao of space. Although there were many geniuses who used the sword, there were not many who had truly comprehended the Tao of sword. After all, the Tao of sword was a special Tao. Without talent, it was impossible to cultivate it. The best Tao was the one that suited oneself. These geniuses were not stupid. They would not blindly pursue the strongest Tao. Chapter 343. The 9 people who chose the Green Lotus altar, led by Jiang Xi, entered the stone door with the words, Green Lotus, engraved on it. What came into view was a huge inheritance altar. A sharp sword Taoist rhyme filled the space. Everyone did not waste any time and quickly sat cross-legged on the altar. Jiang Xi took a deep breath in anticipation, closed his eyes, and connected his spiritual sense to the altar. Suddenly, his mind fell into the illusion of the Tao technique. A clear pond appeared in front of him. On the surface of the water, there was a green lotus swaying in the wind. As time passed, 1 green lotus became 4, then 100, 1,000, and 10,000. After 10,000, the number of green lotuses began to decrease again. 1,000, 100, 4, and 1. The cycle repeated, a total of 9 stages. It was very simple. However, Jiang Xi's mind was completely immersed in this simple process. Finally, a divine light flashed in his eyes, and 4 words appeared in his mind, Green Lotus as a sword. However, even though he knew these 4 words, he still could not figure it out. It was like knowing that 1 + 1 = 2, but not knowing why it equals 2. It was the same principle. Forget it, let's try the deduction effect first. Jiang Xi did not forget his previous idea. The Tao technique inheritance left behind by a peak powerhouse was a guiding light for enlightenment and cultivation. The deduction function of the experience points panel was also equivalent to a kind of enlightenment and cultivation. Now that he had the sword Tao inheritance in the Green Lotus altar as a reference, the deduction efficiency should be higher. Immediately, Jiang Xi thought in his heart under the reflection of the Green Lotus in the pond, use the sword domain to deduce once. After the deduction was completed, he carefully felt the changes in the Tao technique in his mind, and his eyes lit up. It's effective. Although the change was very subtle, he still noticed it with his sharp spiritual sense. The sword domain had a trace of shrinking and condensing. If there was a change, it meant there was an effect. In comparison, when he was deducing the sword domain in the original universe, there might not be a change even after thousands of deductions. Let's try the Purple Cloud Sword Manual and the sword domain together. Riverward once again recited the deduction in his heart. After this deduction, he could not help but be excited. The effect is even more obvious. If the efficiency of the deduction was 10 times faster than before, then it was 100 times faster now. The effects of the Violet Firmament Sword scripture had long been verified. When he first comprehended the true meaning of the sword, it was largely due to the deduction of the Purple Firmament Sword scripture. Although the Purple Firmament Sword scripture was a cultivation technique, the content of the technique was similar to the general outline of the sword Tao. It was of great help to his sword cultivation. At this rate, I'll probably succeed in 1 or 2 years. Thinking of this, Jiang Xi felt helpless. There wasn't enough time. These new geniuses only had one chance to comprehend the inheritance altar for free, and the time limit was 10 days. Jiang Xi didn't think too much about this problem. Time was precious. He would think about these things after this opportunity was over. Deduce. 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 As he carefully sensed the changes in the green lotus in the pool, he silently deduced in his heart. During this process, he couldn't feel the passage of time. All of the geniuses were completely immersed in the Tao arts of the inheritance altar. Time's up. The white-robed priest's voice sounded in everyone's mind. Instantly, everyone was startled awake from their deep comprehension. Is it over? The geniuses walked out of the stone door, feeling unsatisfied. Many of them looked at each other and felt the same. There was too little time. Only 10 days. Yan Jiufeng was an impatient person. As soon as she came out, she asked the gray-robed elder, Lord Emissary, what are the conditions for coming to the inheritance altar again? The other geniuses also looked over, wanting to know the answer. In a while, find a stone house to stay in, then use the communication pearl to enter the sky-piercing mountain river diagram. Recite the sky-piercing mountain again, and you'll know how to obtain the opportunity to comprehend it, the gray-robed elder said with a smile. The 9 regions genius competition was over. They could still enter the sky-piercing mountain river diagram? The geniuses were shocked. After the 9 regions genius competition, the Violet Firmament sect didn't take back their imprints. As for the participants who failed, their imprints were taken back. At this time, only Riverward was endlessly shocked in his heart. But he maintained calm on the surface, and no abnormality could be discerned. Sky-piercing mountain. Before the 9 regions genius competition, he had heard of the sky-piercing mountain river diagram for the first time. Because of the eye of heaven, he didn't feel much. But now, hearing the 3-word sky-piercing mountain, Jiang Xi's heart could no longer remain calm. The Jade Lake Mystic Realm had a sky-piercing mountain. The exact same name. Even a ghost wouldn't believe that there was no relationship between the two. Then what was the relationship? Unfortunately, Jiang Xi had no one to ask the answer to this question. He wasn't stupid enough to say it out loud. Then, everyone followed the gray-robed elder and left 9 Clouds Palace. The gray-robed elder's mission to lead the way also came to an end. After the geniuses bowed and thanked him, they dispersed and went to find a place to stay. Jiang Xi didn't go too far. He searched nearby. After all, 9 Cloud City was very big. There were stone houses everywhere, and they were all of the same size. There was nothing to choose. The doors of these stone houses had to be refined with spiritual sense. He could tell at a glance if there were people or not. Jiang Xi quickly found an unoccupied stone house. After refining the stone door with his spiritual sense, he walked in. The living environment was still very simple and crude. The stone bed, stone table, and stone stool were all gone. It's a bit like cultivation. I came here to cultivate, not to enjoy. Jiang Xi took a deep breath and sat cross-legged on the stone bed. He took out his communication bead with a serious expression. Jade Lake Sky-Piercing Mountain. Tao Alliance's sky-piercing mountain. I'll know when I see it with my own eyes. Then, he scanned the communication bead with his spiritual sense and entered the sky-piercing mountain river diagram. It's the same place as the 9 regions genius competition. Jiang Xi looked around. It was still the same meteorite in the starry sky. Without hesitation, he said in his heart, "Sky-piercing mountain." Instantly, the river of stars spun. In the next moment, he found himself on a vast continent surrounded by starry skies. Jiang Xi could no longer maintain his composure. He was in disbelief. Looking ahead, he saw a mountain range that wasn't connected together not too far away. Those majestic mountains occupied a vast area. Their peaks seemed to pierce the heavens. In front of each mountain, there was a stone tablet with the following words engraved on it: Purple Firmament Sky-Piercing Mountain. Dao Name Sky-Piercing Mountain. Vast Frost Sky-Piercing Mountain. There were a total of 44 mountains. And these mountains looked exactly the same as Jade Lake's Sky-Piercing Mountain. What was the connection? Chapter 344. Jiang Xi, there's no need to be so surprised, right? It's just a slightly taller mountain. Mu Ning's voice came from the side. Jiang Xi realized that many geniuses had already arrived at the foot of the mountain. Many of them were looking at him in confusion. They had already seen the shocking Dao Alliance Heavenly Court and ancient Dao Origin world. How could they be surprised by these mountains? I'm just surprised by the names of these mountains. Why are they the same as the inheritance altars? Do I have to climb these mountains to obtain the opportunity to learn from the inheritance altars? Jiang Xi chuckled. I'm also puzzled. The Lord Envoy didn't explain clearly just now, Mu Ning said. Yeah. Do we have to buy them? Or what? He didn't give us a definite answer, Yan Jiufeng added. The other geniuses, such as Kuang Lang, Mo Hong, Li Xianxian, Lin Ling and the others, also began to discuss. Only Ji Wei stood to the side, resting with his eyes closed. No one dared to barge in without permission. This was because a black-robed elder with a dignified face was sitting in front of the Skyspan Mountains. Seeing that everyone's attention had been diverted, Jiang Xi heaved a sigh of relief. He glanced at the black-robed elder and found that he wasn't moving either. Only then did he calmly observe the towering mountains not far away. With his current cultivation, he could easily determine the area, height, slope, and so on. And these data were exactly the same as the Skyspan Mountain on Earth. If there's a difference, it's that the Skyspan Mountain is real. And these Skyspan Mountains are in the Skyspan Mountain and River painting, so they're an illusion. But, is it really an illusion? Jiang Xi asked himself in his heart and sighed inwardly. No matter what, these secrets weren't something he could investigate with his current strength. Not long after, the 3,600 geniuses had all arrived. The black-robed elder sitting in front of the Skyspan Mountains suddenly opened his eyes and shouted. Silence! At the same time, a wave of pressure spread out. The geniuses were shocked. The gray-robed elder, the white-robed elder, and now the black-robed elder, none of them were simple. I'm in charge of guarding the Heavenspan Mountain. You can call me Lord Mountain Guardian, the black-robed elder said solemnly. Greetings, Lord Mountain Guardian. The geniuses bowed respectfully. The black-robed Lord Mountain Guardian was expressionless as he continued, This is the first time all of you have come to Mditong Tian. Let me give you a simple introduction. There are a total of 44 sky-piercing mountains, which coincide with the inheritance altar. If you wish to obtain the opportunity to comprehend the inheritance altar, the only way to do so is to challenge the Skyspan Mountain. Many people's eyes lit up with excitement. It turned out that it was just challenging the mountain. Once he succeeded, he would be able to obtain the opportunity to comprehend the inheritance altar. However, there were also a small number of people who frowned. They felt that things were not that simple. Jiang Xi's expression was also calm. Because he had seen the Jade Pool Heavenly Mountain, he would not underestimate this place. Whichever inheritance altar you choose, go challenge the corresponding sky-piercing mountain. There are guardians on the mountain. Every time you pass a level, you will get a chance to comprehend the inheritance altar. The black-robed Lord Mountain Guardian continued in a deep voice. Guardian. The excited geniuses quickly calmed down. The opportunity to comprehend the inheritance altar was incomparably precious. It was definitely not easy to obtain. However, there were still many people who were very confident. Don't think that it's simple. For countless years, very few people like you have been able to pass the first level on their first attempt. The Lord Mountain Guardian poured a bucket of cold water on the eager geniuses. They couldn't pass the first level. Almost everyone's expression changed. The Lord Mountain Guardian continued to introduce. The Skyspan Mountain has the most levels. It has a total of 32 levels. The second is the Skyspan Mountain, which has 31 levels. Then there are the Blue Lotus Mountain, True Mystic Mountain, Vast Cold Mountain, and so on. They all have 29 levels. These levels are related to the realm of the Tao. The higher the level, the more difficult it is. Under normal circumstances, the highest level a tribulation transcender can reach is the 10th level. If you can pass the 21st level, you will be a peak Tao Lord. When the Lord Mountain Guardian introduced this point, the 3,600 geniuses were shocked. They were all in disbelief. It turned out that a tribulation transcender could only pass the 10th level at most. If one could pass the 21st level, they would become a Tao Lord. In addition, the 44 Tao inheritances left behind by the peak powerhouses represent 44 different schools of thought. As long as a cultivator of each school can pass the 14th level of the Skyspan Mountain, they will be granted the same rights. Not only will they be able to live in Nine Heavens City permanently, but they can also come to the ancient Tao origin world to cultivate at any time. They will also be able to open their own schools in Nine Heavens City and accept disciples. And as long as you pass the 3rd level, you will be able to listen to the teachings of these powerhouses. If you are lucky, you might be able to become a disciple of one of these powerhouses. The Lord Mountain Guardian smiled and poured a bucket of cold water on them. Naturally, he had to give them more confidence. Sure enough, when the geniuses heard this, their eyes lit up with anticipation. Permanent residency in Nine Heavens City. Although they hadn't been in the ancient Tao origin world for long, they could already feel the unique cultivation environment here. If he could continue to cultivate here, his strength would definitely increase by leaps and bounds. Of course, everyone knew that the difficulty would be very, very high. Under normal circumstances, tribulation transcender powerhouses could only pass the 10th level. The 14th level was definitely beyond the tribulation transcender level. It had to be a Tao Immortal or Perfected Lord level powerhouse. And if they passed the 3rd level, they would be able to listen to the teachings of such powerhouses. It sounded easier. If they could become a disciple of a Perfected Lord level powerhouse, then their future cultivation path would be much easier. Not only would it be much easier, but they would also have a powerful backer. Only one person can pass each Skyspan Mountain at a time. Right now, Nine Heavens, Void Universe, True Mystic, Limitless, Blue Lotus, all of these Skyspan Mountains have people trying to pass them. Chapter 345. Jiang Xi, do you think Yan Jiufeng can pass? Mu Ning couldn't help but ask. Probably, maybe. I don't know. Jiang Xi smiled. What a load of nonsense. Mu Ning snorted. 5 minutes later, Yan Jiufeng flew back from the sky-piercing mountain. The lively girl in the red dress had a tense expression on her face. You didn't pass? Mu Ning asked. Sigh, it's too difficult. Yan Jiufeng smiled helplessly. Too difficult. Those words made the hearts of the geniuses sink. If even Yan Jiufeng said it was difficult, then they had even less of a chance. At this moment, the Lord Guardian shouted, "The Void Universe sky-piercing mountain is empty. Those who have chosen the Void Universe altar, go ahead." Whoosh! A figure flew out and attracted everyone's attention. It was Ji Wei. If even Ji Wei can't pass, then it's too difficult. Jiang Xi frowned. Those who weren't challenging the mountain were waiting for Ji Wei's result. At the same time, the geniuses who had gone to challenge the other sky-piercing mountains were also flying back. Basically, the time they spent was around 2 minutes, and they failed. 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, Ji Wei still hadn't come down. Ji Wei has passed the first stage. The Lord Guardian suddenly smiled. Everyone was shocked. Ji Wei was indeed strong. However, Ji Wei's success gave everyone hope. It wasn't impossible to pass the first stage. After another 10 minutes, the Lord Guardian smiled and said, as expected of a genius rarely seen in a million years. He has passed the second stage. Hiss, everyone wasn't shocked. They all sucked in a breath of cold air. Freak! Even the second-place Yan Jiufeng couldn't pass the first stage. Ji Wei had actually passed the second stage. The gap was too big. Everyone felt the pressure. Even geniuses were divided into different levels. Ordinary, peak, peerless. They were only peak geniuses, but Ji Wei was a peerless genius. Even the lively Yan Jiufeng fell silent. Quang Lang, the third-place genius of the 9 regions genius battle, had an ugly expression on his face. He had tried to challenge the sky-piercing mountain, but he had only lasted for 3 minutes before being defeated. Among the geniuses who had cleared the sky-piercing mountain, this time could be ranked third. But for the arrogant Quang Lang, he wouldn't allow himself to have such a big gap with others. Why? We're all in the top 3 of the 9 regions genius tournament, and we're all Purple Heaven Sect's 4th Heaven disciples, but he passed the first 2 tests. Quang Lang clenched his teeth. The other geniuses in the top 10, such as Mo Hong, Bloodchild, Li Xianxian, Lin Ling, Feng Lu, and the others, wore complicated expressions. Jiang Xi and Mu Ning looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Another 3 minutes passed, and Ji Wei flew back from the void universe sky connecting mountain expressionlessly. Upon closer inspection, one could see that his brows were slightly furrowed. He stopped at the 3rd stage. After that, Ji Wei didn't linger any longer. His spiritual awareness left the painting and he went back to cultivate. Only then did the others who had cleared the Heavenspan mountain come to their senses. What was the point of wasting time here? With such a huge gap between them, what was the point of watching the show? He might as well cultivate. Instantly, the number of people decreased significantly. No one is challenging the myriad Heavenspan Mountain and Green Lotus Heavenspan Mountain now, the Mountain Keeper's voice sounded. Jiang Xi was talking to Mu Ning and Yan Jiufeng. He was about to go over when he heard the voice. However, he discovered that another genius who cultivated the sword Dao had rushed out before him. Fine, I can observe the situation of the other 8 people. A total of 9 people chose the Green Lotus altar. Jiang Xi didn't insist on who went first. Jiang Xi, Yan Jiufeng, I'm going too. Mu Ning said with a determined gaze. Good luck. Good luck. Jiang Xi and Yan Jiufeng said. Then, Mu Ning flew towards the myriad Heavenspan mountain. After 5 minutes, Mu Ning still hadn't come out. On the contrary, the 8 sword Dao geniuses who went to challenge the Green Lotus Heavenspan mountain failed in succession within 5 minutes. At this speed, they came back down almost as soon as they went up. Looking at the time, Mu Ning should be passing the first round. Jiang Xi took a deep breath and was about to fly towards the Green Lotus Heavenspan mountain. Just then, he heard the mountain keeper say with a smile, this year's geniuses are not bad. Mu Ning has also passed the first round. Fuck. Jiang Xi directly used the Gale domain and accelerated towards the Green Lotus Heavenspan mountain. Everyone had a competitive heart. Even the most Buddhist-like people were no exception. No genius would admit defeat easily. The other geniuses' expressions changed drastically. They were even more shocked than when they heard that Ji Wei had passed the first 2 rounds. Because Ji Wei's talent and strength far exceeded theirs, and Mu Ning wasn't in the top 3 of the 9 regions' genius battle. At this moment, Kuang Lang's eyes flickered. It wasn't jealousy, but competitiveness. He was in the top 3 of the 9 regions' genius battle. Why? Jiang Xi also went to challenge the first round. I only lasted 3 minutes in the first round. He should also be in the same time. Kuang Lang took a deep breath. He wanted to see the results of Jiang Xi's challenge. This was because he had fought with Jiang Xi in the 9 regions genius battles arena battles. At that time, the two of them were about the same strength. It was only because he had the advantage of the terrain that he defeated Jiang Xi in the end. Not far away, Yan Jiufeng was closer to Mu Ning and Jiang Xi because of her relationship with them. After the challenge, she didn't leave the sky-piercing mountain and river painting because she wanted to see the results of the two. Mu Ning looks innocent, but he's hiding a lot of things. Jiang Xi's strength is about the same as Kuang Lang's. He probably won't be able to pass the first round, she thought to herself. The other top 10 geniuses didn't leave either. Everyone had a competitive spirit and was unwilling to admit defeat. My Ignis Dao is already perfected. Among so many geniuses, my Dao technique strength is definitely in the top 3. I don't believe I can't pass. With this thought in mind, Jiang Xi quickly arrived at the majestic green lotus Skirich mountain. There was a stone tablet at the foot of the mountain. It was very similar to the stone tablet at the Jade Lake Skirich mountain. It was also engraved with ancient words that didn't belong to this era. The content was instantly transmitted to Jiang Xi's mind. Green Lotus Skirich Mountain. Attached, point reward rules. The first round rewards 100 points. The second round rewards 200 points. The third round rewards 400 points. The fourth round, so on and so forth. The points reward would be doubled for every additional round passed. For young geniuses who have just entered the ancient Dao origin world to cultivate, they will receive 10 times the points reward for 30 years. In order, 1,000 points, 2,000 points, 4,000 points. The information on the stone tablet made Riverward pleasantly surprised. Points. 1 point was equivalent to 100 supreme-grade spirit crystals. After spending once in the Purple Heaven Sect's treasure pavilion, he realized the importance of points. He could buy many things in the Purple Heaven Sect's treasure pavilion that couldn't be bought in the outside world. For example, the Origin Awakening Spirit Pearl that he needed to refine his clone was very difficult to buy in the outside world. Chapter 346. Passing the sky-piercing mountain in the newbie stage would give 10 times the points reward. Passing the first stage would give 1,000 points, which was equivalent to 100,000 supreme-grade spirit crystals. This was already the same as the spirit crystal reward for the top 3 in the 9 regions genius battle. From the point reward, one could see how difficult the sky-piercing mountain was. Among so many young geniuses, only Ji Wei and Mu Ning had passed the second and first stages respectively. The difficulty was obvious. Pass the mountain. Jiang Xi's eyes were firm. Whether it was difficult or not, he would pass it first. It might seem like a long process, but it actually took less than a breath's time to go through the information on the stone tablet. Looking up, one could see that there was a stone staircase on the Green Lotus sky-piercing mountain that led to the top of the mountain. There was a platform at every interval of the stone staircase. Jiang Xi walked up the stairs. The first platform was the first stage. In the depths of Nine Heavens City, other than the 1,000-meter-tall Nine Heavens Palace, there were many other palaces. Additionally, there were also quite a number of palaces, 100 meters tall, surrounding Nine Firmaments Palace. Those were the grotto mansions of some human experts. At this moment, a woman in green flew into one of the palaces on her sword. "Brother Zhongli, don't sleep anymore. Come down and see me." The woman in green frowned and shouted from below a pavilion. "Sai, Ping, I'll call you sister, okay?" I've only slept for 300 years, 300 years. You woke me up. A helpless voice sounded from within the pavilion. A young man with long, messy hair and a slovenly appearance walked down from the pavilion. His clothes were unbuttoned, and he held a wine gourd in his hand. What's the matter? His eyes were wandering. No matter what, you were once the famous wine sword immortal in the other realms. Now, you only know how to sleep all day. Immortal Ping had a look of disappointment on her face. If you have something to say, say it. If not, I'm going upstairs. Wine Sword Immortal was clearly impatient. The new 9 regions Genius Battles youths are all here. 9 of them have chosen our Green Lotus sect. Come with me. Immortal Ping stated her intentions. Boring. I'm not going. Wine Sword Immortal raised his gourd and took a sip, as if he was hiding something. Immortal Ping sighed in her heart. She knew that her words had poked at Wine Sword Immortal's sore spot. Because the Wine Sword Immortal Zhongli and his Dao companion, Lian Rong, had met each other during the 9 regions Genius battle. And now, the Wine Sword Immortal was still here, but his Dao companion was gone. This great change caused the Wine Sword Immortal, who had dominated the 9 regions and slaughtered the immortal Dao experts of the 10,000 races in the extraterritorial battlefield, to fall into depression until today. Immortal Ping was very clear that it had already been 50,000 years. If the Wine Sword Immortal did not resolve the demonic barrier in his heart, he would not be able to break through. A 9th Tribulation Transcender had a lifespan of 100,000 years at most. If Wine Sword Immortal does not break through, his lifespan will be depleted. Sister Rong, I really have no other choice. Immortal Ping muttered to herself. For the past 50,000 years, in order to help the Wine Sword Immortal break the demonic barrier in his heart, she had thought of all sorts of ways but had never succeeded. Every time the 9 regions Genius Tournament's young people came to 9 Heaven City, she would try to get Wine Sword Immortal to go out and take a look. With this in mind, Immortal Ping advised again, leave quickly. The Sword Dao's Green Lotus lineage is now relying on you to hold up the facade. You are already able to take charge of an area on your own. Wine Sword Immortal raised his gourd and drank again. In the world of mortals with a sword, only wine can resolve my desires. At the same time, he hummed an off-key song and was about to go upstairs. No more wine. He suddenly stopped in his tracks and shook his wine gourd, frowning. Why is there no wine now? He pinched his fingers and divined, but found nothing. But the feeling of sudden inspiration was extremely obvious. This was a situation that had never happened in the past 50,000 years. Oh well, let's go. Wine Sword Immortal regained his unrestrained self and laughed. I can go with you to take a look, but after that, you have to get me 100,000-year-old moon frost wine. 100,000-year-old moon frost wine? You better go back to sleep. Immortal Ping stared with her eyes wide open. Ha! Wine Sword Immortal laughed loudly. Then, with a thought, their spiritual awareness entered the sky-piercing mountain river painting. In the sky above the vast continent where the sky-piercing mountain was, the 2 figures were hidden in the starry sky. They were looking at the Green Lotus sky-piercing mountain. How are the young people this year? Wine Sword Immortal asked. There is a genius called Ji Wei, who is said to be hard to come by in 1,000,000 years. Just now, he challenged the Void Universe sky-piercing mountain and passed 2 rounds consecutively. Immortal Ping replied. That is an extraordinary person, who knows, he might become a great Dao immortal in the future. Wine Sword Immortal was surprised. He asked again, what about those who chose the Green Lotus altar? There are 9 people, I have already sent a message to the Mountain Guardian, the first 8 people have already failed. Now, the one who is challenging the mountain is called Jiang Xi. It is said that he has a slight chance of passing the first round. Oh? Let me take a look. Wine Sword Immortal raised his wine gourd and was about to drink when he remembered that there was no wine left. In the end, he could only helplessly shake his head and look at the Green Lotus sky-piercing mountain. Green Lotus sky-piercing mountain, Jiang Xi walked along the stone steps and quickly reached the first platform. This place was empty and did not seem to be dangerous. But then, the space changed and he fell into an illusion. In the illusory space, there was an endless mountain range. At this time, Jiang Xi was standing in the air. In front of him, there was a figure standing with a sword on his back. It was a middle-aged man wearing battle armor, exuding the powerful aura of immortal realm. Guardian. Immortal. It would be strange if he could pass. Jiang Xi's expression changed abruptly. As for the gatekeeper, he frowned, another original infant stage brat. Then, his aura suddenly decreased. His cultivation quickly fell to perfected nascent soul stage, the same as Jiang Xi. Chapter 347. In terms of the Tao of heaven and earth, the cultivation of Tao techniques was divided into 3 levels: special, rare, and ordinary. When a Taoist technique entered the Great Tao level, it was only divided into special and ordinary. This was because there were thousands of Taoist techniques, but there were only 36 Great Taos. The cultivation before the Great Tao was naturally special and rare Taoist techniques, which had a higher chance of stepping onto the Great Tao than ordinary Taoist techniques. The limit of an ordinary Great Tao is 10,000 times, and the first realm is 1,900 times. I'm 1,000 times, and the difference is less than 2 times. How can I fight? Jiang Xi took a deep breath. It was too difficult. No wonder he had failed all his previous attempts. However, you should know that Sword Tao focuses on killing. Even if it only has the power of an ordinary first-level Great Tao technique, it's still much stronger than ordinary Great Tao techniques. In terms of attack power, it is also much stronger than other ordinary Great Taos. Are you ready? The gatekeeper's deep voice sounded again. Jiang Xi's eyes narrowed. Let's begin. Admit defeat? That was impossible. Buzz! The sound of a sword rang out. At the same time, the aura of a sword domain suddenly condensed on Jiang Xi's sword. Are all the Sword Tao cultivators of the human race so weak now? The gatekeeper whispered. Swoosh! A soaring sword intent emanated from the long sword behind him and soared into the sky. Although he maintained his cultivation base at the perfected nascent soul realm, his current Taoist technique strength was at the tribulation immortal realm. The gatekeeper would not show mercy and instantly attacked. The sword was unstoppable, directly piercing through space and stabbing towards Jiang Xi. Boom! However, a layer of fire and wind condensed on Jiang Xi's sword. The Tao of Fire and the Gale Domain. This was not a fusion technique, but 3 Taoist techniques at the same time. He also cultivated other Taoist techniques. The gatekeeper's expression turned cold. Boom! Boom! The 2 swords instantly clashed. The 3 Taoist techniques collided with the pure sword intent. A powerful aura erupted and swept through the mountain range. Mountain peaks crumbled one after another. Bang! At the end of the first exchange, Jiang Xi was directly sent flying and smashed into a 10,000-meter tall mountain. Suddenly, half of the mountain exploded, and the mountain collapsed. Your Tao technique strength isn't bad. If you go to other heaven-span mountains, you can clear the first round. But here, you're still far from enough. The gatekeeper said in a deep voice. Don't look down on me. Jiang Xi rushed out from the rubble below and slashed at the gatekeeper. Clang! The 2 of them exchanged blows again. Riverward had always been at a disadvantage. His current spiritual energy amplitude was only 1,000 times. However, by using 3 Taoist techniques at the same time, he was able to hold on. Unfortunately, I'm unable to utilize the Tao fusion technique, otherwise, I'd surely kill him. Jiang Xi retreated repeatedly. They could only passively defend. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. The gatekeeper was also somewhat surprised. His current strength was already equivalent to that of a first tribulation transcender. Jiang Xi had actually waited for so long. Moreover, he realized that Jiang Xi's use of Dao techniques was very exquisite. Sword Domain, Gale Domain, Li Fire Dao. Although it was not a fusion of Daos and Dharma, each had their own division of labor and coordination. Let's end this. The gatekeeper slashed again and forced Jiang Xi to retreat thousands of kilometers. This time, he took advantage of the fact that Jiang Xi was exhausted and used his sword intent to sweep the area. The gap is still too big. Jiang Xi felt helpless. Of course, there was an exception, and that was powerhouses above the true monarch level, who didn't need to follow this rule. Let's go back and talk about it. Wine Sword Immortal smiled gently, a trace of spirit hidden in his eyes. He still had a piece of information that he didn't reveal, and that was that Jiang Xi's sword Dao was too similar to his Dao partner Rong Er's sword Dao. They were both very pure. It was just that Jiang Xi's sword Dao was a bit purer. But no matter what, as long as it was similar, there was hope in his heart. The two figures disappeared into the starry sky of the sky-piercing mountain river painting. Below, on the vast land where the sky-piercing mountain was located, the black-robed old man guarding the mountain looked up at the starry sky where the two were and sighed softly. The other geniuses were already discussing at this time. Jiang Xi has already been in the trial for 5 minutes. Is he going to pass the first trial? It's hard to say. Among the top 10, only Ji Wei and Mu Ning passed the first trial. Even the second place Yan Jiufeng and the third place Kuang Lang failed. Look, he came out. The mountain guard didn't say that he passed the first trial. He failed. Many geniuses let out a sigh of relief. If Jiang Xi passed it again, the blow would be too great. Kuang Lang clenched and unclenched his fists. Others didn't care, but he did. Because Jiang Xi had lasted for 5 minutes on the sky-piercing mountain, far exceeding his 3 minutes. Comparing the two, it meant that Jiang Xi's Dao strength had far surpassed his. 1, 2, 3, they're all monsters. Yan Jiufeng muttered. Then, he said to Mu Ning, I'm leaving first. Mu Ning tilted his head and knocked on his straw hat with his bamboo flute. Only a year had passed, and Jiang Xi's improvement was beyond his expectations. In the end, all 3,600 geniuses had finished challenging the mountain. Only Ji Wei passed the second trial, and Mu Ning passed the first trial. The others all failed. The ones who lasted the longest were Yan Jiufeng and Jiang Xi. The competition began from this moment onwards. The other top 10 geniuses became even more hardworking. This was also a scene that the human race experts were happy to see. Only through competition could there be improvement. However, a piece of news spread among the geniuses the next day, causing a sensation. Chapter 348. 9 Heavens City, inside Jiang Xi's stone house. Mu Ning was taken in as a disciple by a perfected cultivator. Jiang Xi held his communication bead in shock. This guy couldn't keep a secret. He had just sent a message to show off to him. He had been taken in as a disciple by a perfected cultivator in 9 Heavens City and was about to pay him a visit. Fuck! A perfected cultivator. Jiang Xi still couldn't express his shock. A perfected cultivator was a Dao immortal expert who had completed a great Dao. When a Dao immortal was invisible, a perfected cultivator could do whatever he wanted. If Mu Ning was taken in as a disciple by such an expert, he would have a chance to step onto the great Dao in the future. Jiang Xi was shocked and fell into deep thought. Ji Wei didn't have a perfected cultivator to take in a disciple, but Mu Ning got a master first. Why is that? And a perfected cultivator has an endless lifespan. If it's not necessary, they rarely take in disciples. Looks like everyone has secrets. Ji Wei has secrets, so does Mu Ning. Even Yan Jiufeng, Kuang Lang, Blood Child, and the others have secrets. Thinking of this, he smiled. Others had secrets, so did he. Envy aside, I have the experience panel. I'll catch up sooner or later. Jiang Ci wasn't the only one who was shocked and confused. All the geniuses were the same. Even Ji Wei was agitated by this. He went straight to the inheritance altar and used one of the 2 chances he had just received. No one wanted to fall behind others. This was especially true for the prideful geniuses. At the same time, in the primal universe, Purple Heaven sect's 6th heaven. A majestic palace sat on the peak of a towering mountain surrounded by stars. Iron Mountain perfected cultivator in blood-red armor sat on top of the palace. As for Immortal Liang and Immortal Chuha, they were standing respectfully below. Greetings, perfected cultivator. How did the youngsters of this batch do? Iron Mountain perfected cultivator's hoarse voice sounded. Immortal Liang said respectfully, only Ji Wei and Mu Ning passed the 2nd stage of the Void Universe Sky Mountain and the 1st stage of the All Things Sky Mountain. Not bad. What about the others? Jiang Ci and Yen Jiufeng were able to pass the 1st stage within 3 years. True Lord Iron Mountain pondered for a moment before nodding. You may leave first. Immortal Liang and Immortal Chuha hurriedly took their leave. In the empty hall, perfected Lord Iron Mountain pondered for a long time as he looked ahead with a deep gaze. From his position, he could see the flow of the galaxy. Kuan Yu spends most of his time in seclusion in the heavenly court of the Tao Alliance. Why would he notice a young fellow who hasn't even reached the Tao merge? True Lord Iron Mountain frowned. After becoming a Tao immortal, one could live as long as the heavens if one did not encounter any calamities or tribulations. As for true Lord Kuan Yu, he was a Tao immortal expert who had lived for countless years. She knew more secrets than he did. So what if I'm recruiting disciples? This year's geniuses are all under my Iron Mountain. 9 Heavens City, Wine Sword Immortal's residence. Wine Sword Immortal and Immortal Ping were watching a battle. It displayed the scene of Mu Ning challenging the 1st stage of the Myriad Heavenspan Mountain. Big brother Zhongli, can you see anything? Why would true Lord Kuan Yu accept him as a disciple? Immortal Ping turned her head and asked. Wine Sword Immortal sleepily said, I can't see anything either. However, this young fellow's eyes are as pure as Jiang Ci's sword. The eyes are the windows to the soul. It's rare to see someone who can still maintain a pure heart after cultivating for hundreds of years. The 2 were somewhat puzzled. Tao immortals like true Lord Kuan Yu, who had endless lifespans, would not easily accept disciples. This was because if they did not cause trouble, they would not die and would not need to pass on their mantle. Instead, tribulation transcenders like them who were nearing the end of their lifespans would often accept disciples. It seems that this year's 9 Regions Genius Tournament is the strongest in the past million years. Not only is there Ji Wei, but there's also Mu Ning, Immortal Ping said. What? Are you looking down on that young fellow who cultivates the Tao of the Sword? Wine Sword Immortal drank another mouthful of wine. Immortal Ping smiled and said, how can I look down on someone that Big Brother Zhongli thinks highly of? I just feel that he's still a little lacking compared to Ji Wei and Mu Ning. A little lacking? That's because there's no one guiding him. Geniuses like Ji Wei and Mu Ning not only have high attainments in the Tao, but they are also very skilled in using it. It's obvious that there's someone guiding them behind the scenes. In comparison, although Jiang Ci's attainment in the Tao is also high, his actual use is a bit shallow. The gap between theory and practice is not small. Wine Sword Immortal shook his head lightly. What does Big Brother Zhongli mean? I have to give him some pointers. It's not easy for the Green Lotus lineage to have such a good seedling. Those Sword Tao perfected lords might not like him, but I do. Immortal Ping smiled and shook her head. He had not even accepted a disciple, but he already regarded her as his master. But then again, I originally wanted to teach him a technique and create a sensation this time, but someone else beat me to it. Although Wine Sword Immortal said this, his expression was very indifferent, as if he did not care at all. Immortal Ping smiled and said, "Don't worry, you are the dignified wine sword immortal. In terms of fame, you are not inferior to true Lord Kuan-Yu." The news that Mu Ning had been accepted as a disciple by a perfected lord quickly spread. A group of young geniuses stirred up a frenzy of cultivation competition. Jiang Ci was naturally also focused on cultivation. Although he was not at the inheritance altar, he still had to continue his deduction. He activated his sword domain and gale domain at the same time. However, he clearly felt that the efficiency of his sword Dao deduction had decreased by 100 times. It would be great if I could sit on the green lotus altar and cultivate every day. Jiang Ci looked forward to it. If others cultivated at the altar for a long time, they might suffer from indigestion. He did not need to worry about that. He only needed the Dao technique inheritance at the inheritance altar as a reference to continue his deduction. Unfortunately, dreams were too far away from reality. The difficulty of challenging the sky-piercing mountain was too high. Oh? At that moment, Jiang Ci discovered that someone had sent him a message. Is it Daodu? He smiled. He had spent 10 days here, but more than a month had passed in the original universe. It's not him. Who is Wine Sword Immortal? Jiang Ci scanned it with his spiritual perception and discovered that it was an unfamiliar transmission mark. Furthermore, it was a message. Ever since the 9 Regions Genius Tournament ended, all kinds of invitations had flooded in. For peace and quiet, he had changed his transmission mark. Now, only a few friends and family, as well as Purple Heaven Sect's Immortal Yi Liang, knew his transmission mark. As for this Wine Sword Immortal, he had never heard of him. However, this name did not sound simple. He was definitely a tribulation transcender. Jiang Ci checked the message with doubts. I'm Wine Sword Immortal. When you challenged the sky-piercing mountain yesterday, I watched from above. Your sword Dao is not bad, and you should continue to maintain it. However, you're not very good at the practical application of Dao techniques. I suggest you systematically learn the basic knowledge of sword Dao application. Our Purple Heaven Sect's treasure pavilion has the tune of 10,000 swords. It's a cultivation technique that explains the basic application of the Green Lotus Sword Dao. You can buy it and learn it. Also, go look for the stone house in the North 9th District of Nine Heavens City. The Dao runes there will be helpful to you. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.